Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Imran, can you hear me?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
There was a bit of a delay there.
Yeah,
All right.
can hear you.
Jazakallah khair to everyone that's joined. This is the open forum. We do this every other Sunday. Generally, topics that are discussed on the open forum are to do with things that are outside of Islam. So we talk about Christianity, talk about Judaism, atheism, Hinduism, Quranists, Qadianism, all the basically groups that are not Muslim and what have you. We discuss those topics. So if you are one of those groups and you'd like to come and tell us why we're wrong or tell us why you're right, we'd be happy to hear you. But today we're going to do and continue with the stream that we had last week, and we may continue with this theme actually, because it's important to do so, and I'll explain to you a little bit why it's important. We currently have, and we've had for some time now, social media being weaponized by certain people in order to attack Islam. Now, I have no issue with people hating Islam or Muslims for what we actually believe, because you know what, that's your choice. If you want to hate us for what we actually believe and how we actually practice our religion, for us it's divine law, comes from God Almighty, and quite frankly, we don't care. Okay. But if you hate us for things that we don't believe or things that are not true, then that's just being dishonest, and that has to be challenged. And there are some sort of podcasts out there that are quite successful in terms of their reach, who are platforming people who are basically spreading propaganda and lies about Islam. And I think that we have to call them out. Now, understanding that it is Ramadan as well, and so we don't want to just purely make it about a stream where we take to task an individual or a group of people who are clearly spreading lies about Islam. We want it to be motivational as well, because it is Ramadan and we're sort of in the last 10 nights now. And so do please, if you have to pray first, watch the stream back, because it will be, it's always uploaded anyway, directly after the stream, so you can watch it later if you need to. So please don't miss your prayers and don't delay them. If you're tired, pray first, inshallah ta'ala, and do a dua for your brothers here as well, and the EFDawah team, inshallah ta'ala, as well. Imran, how are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah, I'm doing well. You well, Brother Abbas?
Alhamdulillah. So Imran, with the theme that we're discussing, we discussed last week as well, we went through Brother Dawah's video as well, and with Liam Tuff. Now, Liam Tuff's quite a reasonably large channel. He gets hundreds of thousands of views on his channel. It was very interesting, actually, under the comments or answers that Dawah was giving, that Liam was constantly putting statements underneath that this is inaccurate or it hasn't been verified, sort of implying that actually this might be lies, this just might be propaganda, this might be untrue. But we're going to expose a video today, actually, whereby, surprisingly, even though they were all lies, and in Dawah's case, they most certainly were not, they were just uncomfortable truths. But with this particular video we're going to go through, inshallah, today, clearly there is the level of fabrication whereby you're either left gobsmacked or you just end up laughing in hysteria at the level that this person stoops to in order to try to defame Islam. It's just such a desperate attempt. But we're going to, inshallah, go through that. But Imran, it seems that you do get obviously atheists and non-Muslims doing that as well. But there is a certain demographic now of Christian preachers who deliberately fabricate, lie, manipulate, interpolate statements and parts of Islam and the Quran in order to just get cheap points. Not only that, but they show a level of hypocrisy and inconsistency, as we've seen from Frank quite often, in fact, where he'll start talking about a miracle and mocking it as if, like, how can that possibly happen? That's not very scientific. And then but he's a practicing Christian who believes in miracles in his own religion, and so there's this hypocrisy as well. But in terms of ethics and morals, I'm not saying Muslims don't lie, or Muslims don't perhaps stretch, or can occasionally stretch the truth perhaps, or whatever, but just outright fabrication and lies. If a fellow Muslim preacher was doing that, we would call them out. We would say, listen, you're not allowed, you're not permitted to just make things up and lie about another religion. So stop it, right? There doesn't seem to be that sort of same level of courtesy or level of good moral standing and code amongst fellow Christians. They don't seem to be calling this stuff out. What's going on, Imran?
It's a great question. I think you have to understand that there is a push to populism, right-wing populism, and it's nationalistic, and it's also increasingly religious as well. And historically, and now also currently, Christians have jumped on this bandwagon. We've seen that in every, we had Catholic or Christian sections of even in Germany, we had a Christian section of them, and this is sort of something that we've seen that always happens, and now we're seeing this sort of spreading across of Europe. We're seeing this spreading, and then here, this is being politically whipped up, and now one of the things that's evident from Speaker's Corner, places like this, online debates, is Christians aren't really able to counter Islam in terms of having an intellectual conversation and having a discussion about the theology, because how are you going to defend God can't forgive sins and has to kill somebody to pay for those sins, an innocent person? You're not going to defend that. How can you defend the Trinity? It's not logical, doesn't make sense. You're not going to be able to defend that in a discussion. So some people have moved towards this sort of attacking Muslims and Islam, directly. And one of the things that's quite interesting is that they've always, that one of the ways around it. A good example of this sort of is Tommy Tem names, where he's now supposed to be sort of fighting for Christianity, Judeo-Christian values of the, it's up to you if Christians want him to be represented for them. By all means, you go for it. But this is an example. We're seeing other people jump in that same bandwagon, and it's really a sign of having failed and lost the discussion. You can't have that discussion. And what we're seeing is that when people jump on this, they literally just make things up. And what's dangerous now is that there was this initial cop out. I'm not talking about Muslims. I'm talking about extremist Islam or Islamism, or they would do this caveat to sort of get them out of, you're being a bigot or you're being racist. They used to use this as a caveat. And in this conversation, we'll see that they actually double down. They say, no, this is not just about extremist Islam. This is about Islam. So they're painting the whole 2 billion Muslims around the world with this sort of concept. But let's but that's my view. But what are your thoughts, Brother Abbas?
Yeah, I think that if you look at the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's lots of lessons obviously from there for us to learn from. And the greatest lessons actually when it comes to this particular topic is that they couldn't deal with the Quran. So they told the people not to even hear it or listen to it or engage with it in any way. And then sallallahu alaihi wasallam was accused of things like sorcery. So he's a sorcerer because this thing that he's brought, the Quran, we don't have an answer for it. So what we're going to say is this is sorcery, and so all that some people said, oh, he's a madman, astaghfirullah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim, right? They made all sorts of accusations against personal attacks, basically. What they couldn't do was deal with the arguments, like you said. And so they had to conjure up lies about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, eventually those lies simply backfired, because what ended up happening was it made people more interested and intrigued. And we have famous stories of people who were told to put cotton wool or fabric in their ears before they went to the Kaaba, because this man, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would be reciting the Quran, and you don't want to hear, otherwise you will become bewitched. You'll become, everyone that hears it, they become bewitched. They become sort of persuaded of its truth, but it's actually a form of like sorcery or magic or something, because they had no explanation for it, subhanallah, right? And of course we have situations where people say, well, look, I'm a great physician. If this person is needs in need of psychological help, I can give it. If they require medical help, I can give it. This is ridiculous. Why am I putting these things in my ears? And he takes them out of his ears, and he goes to the Prophet and he says that your people are saying this about you, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam just gives him a few lines of the khudwa that we normally recite, and what happens? This person is completely mesmerized, and he realizes immediately, this is not from a man, this is not from a human being, this is something incredible. And so this is what's happening. And I think a lot of people, what's happening is that there's an element of overkill for the bigot, for the racist, for the Islamophobe. It doesn't matter what level of lies you give, they'll just accept it. But for the rational individual, the person who actually thinks, contemplates about things and thinks about things, and it has a level of sort of fairness in them, and they want to really try to get to the bottom of things, you see, they're going to start thinking, well, if this is so evil, so bad, so horrid, so morbid, so, violent and oppressive, why is it spreading like wildfire in our own countries? Why is it that so many people are converting to Islam then, if it is what they say, what these people are claiming it is? And I think that level of intrigue and that level of wanting to find out for themselves actually is bringing people to Islam. So as Allah says, they want to extinguish the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but Allah will make this light spread all over the world, and it will enter every household, and no matter how much they despise it or hate it, the word of Allah will spread. But anyway, let's get the video. We're not going to chat anymore, inshallah.
Single Muslim will go to hell. Cut their fingers off, cut their neck, behead them. These are verses.
Let's see if I can pause that 1 second. Right, is that that is at the beginning, isn't it? Okay, so there's
a little bit of like a compilation where she makes a few claims, right?
All right, okay. So shall we forward the compilation, or
skip that, or whatever you like to do?
Yeah, I think let's skip the compilation. So let's just get to a couple of minutes in or whatever. I think we'll get to the first timestamp that I have here. Let's put it this way. So we'll go to we'll go to 4 minutes 30 is the first one. Let's see if we can get there just a little bit back. Okay, we'll start there, and then we'll see how that goes.
Discrimination against Christians, and this, let's promote and support Islam, and let's just make way for Muslims to do what they want to do, but let's stop Christians at all costs doing anything. The most recent time that happened was was a week ago. There was a March for Jesus going to take place again along the streets of Whitechapel. It was banned. There was an accusation made that it was a political march, that it was an anti-immigration march, that it was an anti-Islamic march. But actually, the whole focus of that march was to exalt Jesus, to worship Jesus, to pray, to worship, to sing songs about Jesus. And that's what was going to be happening that day. But it was banned, it was stopped.
Who is doing the banning and stopping? Is it the local council?
The local council, but the
Okay, so I don't know whether this march actually was banned or wasn't banned, but let's just deal with the fact that why is it that they constantly go to Whitechapel? Is that just I mean, they just throw a dart on a map and it happens to land in Whitechapel every time? Or could it be that they deliberately target that area because they know that there are a high number of Muslims that live in that area, and that because of the antagonizing of that community, by the way, by the far right, because that was a prime location for the far right to show up and cause trouble in that area. So these are youngsters whose fathers, uncles have been beaten up, shops that have been smashed, and all sorts of other things that have been done. And so there is a level of tension. There is a level of tension there. Now, should people legally be allowed to march if they want to march celebrating Jesus? I have absolutely no issue with that whatsoever. They could do that wherever they like. But we know, for example, that these are the same sort of people. Like we had, there was a video that went viral just recently, and it was a guy outside Whitechapel Mosque during, I think, time of Taraweeh prayer, after the prayer, around that sort of time. And he was calling the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he was naming animals and comparing the Prophet, peace be upon him, to animals, basically. Okay, I'm not even going to say what animal, but basically, because it's disrespectful, I'm not going to even mention it. So clearly he was antagonizing the group of youngsters, mainly youngsters who were around him, who clearly reacted perhaps outside of how they should have reacted. I would agree that, you know, you should have just ignored that person and walked away. But we all know that when you deliberately go into somebody's face, into their area, you antagonize them, you start swearing at people's, prophets, gods and what have you, that is going to cause a reaction. You're not dumb. You're not stupid. You shouldn't be that dumb and that stupid to realize or to recognize the fact that there's not going to be a reaction. Now, am I saying the reaction is legal and right and correct? Absolutely not. But I wouldn't go to, for example, Stamford Hill, which is a very Jewish area, and start, na'uzubillah, not that we would anyway, because it would be something that would put us outside the fold of Islam. But I wouldn't support somebody going there and saying derogatory things about Moses or Abraham or about the Jewish people, because I think that would be a deliberate attempt to antagonize a community and antagonize a people in order to try to get a reaction, and that would be unacceptable. Now, all of the dimwits that say, no, you just have to be patient, you just have to ignore it. Okay, well, when I see football teams going and supporting their teams, being patient when the other side antagonize them and say negative things about their football club, okay, and they just laugh it off and go, ha 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 ha, he's talking bad about Chelsea and our players, ha ha ha, very funny, we're just going to walk away. Okay, oh, that doesn't happen either, does it? It obviously encourages an altercation, because if you strike a raw nerve, you end up being deliberately obnoxious against something that somebody truly values and they like. We know how that can act as a trigger. So these marches that go on in Whitechapel, or these preachers that show up in Whitechapel, they play all very innocent, like we're just there preaching the love of Jesus, but actually they're swearing at the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, or at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's a deliberate attempt to just stoke a reaction. And so
let's show an example. So Brother Jordan has done a really great, very 5-minute response to the same.
Yeah, let's watch
podcast.
this.
So I'm just gonna play a moment of it, just so you get an idea. And hopefully you can hear this, guys. Tell me if you can't.
Lots of claims. So
do a bit louder.
No, you can't hear it.
It's a bit low.
Okay.
So I think you have to share the sound on the screen, isn't it?
Do I? How do I do that?
So I think if you when you go to the share, where it says the sound, I think you can share it from the actual screen rather than your microphone through the screen.
Okay, so share screen.
And then audio, I think it should allow you to share the
audio.
audio.
Yeah, I can see that.
Screen, yeah.
Okay.
And that will make it loud.
Of claims. So it's only fair to do a bit of fact checking.
Bit of an echo, Imran.
Let me
reverberation from your microphone, possibly. So just turn your mic off for a second and then do it from the speaker, from the audio of the screen.
Okay, so just introducing this person for you, so you get an idea of the wonderful marches that she does for the sake of preaching Jesus.
The whole focus of that march was to exalt Jesus, to worship Jesus, to pray, to worship, to sing songs about Jesus. And that's what was going to be happening that day. But it was banned, it was stopped.
So straight off the bat, she's presented herself as somebody that goes around preaching the gospel. But obviously on inspection of her channel, and I'll play a couple of clips, she goes to Whitechapel, a heavily populated Muslim area, and talks about Islam with a little sprinkling of Christ.
Muhammad never died on a cross for your sins, but Jesus did. Muhammad is dead in the grave, but Jesus is alive. Jesus is coming back. Muhammad
And look, we're in Britain. She's got freedom of speech.
So that's just the reason for showing that was just to give the example. So this is what there's a claim being made here, and the claim being made here. Look, Christians are being prevented by Muslims from preaching Christianity. Which Muslims have the power to do this? This is the same claim as the Muslims ban Christmas claim that you get in the newspapers. It's absolutely ridiculous to make that claim. Now, what happens is the authorities, they make an assessment based upon risk of any martyrs or people that want to organize, and these guys are all anti-Muslims. They hate Islam. They hate Muslims, specifically hate Muslims. They may claim otherwise, and this person clarifies that the problem is not Islamic extremism but Islam. We'll come on to that in a moment. But the point here is that they make these assessments and they say, actually, you know what, what you're doing is not going to help anyone. It's bad for the society, bad for that area, and we will cause problems. So we're not going to. And if that decision was made, but the impression is Muslims stopping Christians from preaching. No, we're not. So Christian, if you think it's a Christian country, go around and preach and do your preaching, but you don't talk about Christianity. I've very rarely met a Christian who talks about Christianity. What they talk about is attacking Islam. That's all they talk about. And if you're going to go into an area and like this, flying flags and abusing the Prophet, peace be upon him, or being derogatory and then making all these claims, Muslim problem, etc., then basically what you're doing is you're stirring the pot of hate. And this is why you're not actually preaching Christianity, you're actually a hate preacher. And there are lots of hate preachers. We see them all the time. You just come to Speaker's Corner and you'll see them. They talk about Islam all the time and they hate Muslims. Basically, that's what it is. And we don't hear any discussions about Christianity. Why? Because there's nothing you can defend in Christianity. Nothing at all. And that's the point. And so they can't talk about this. So they have to talk about, and they make these odd claims about, the Prophet, peace upon him, is dead and Jesus is alive.
I want you to just put that video back on without necessarily playing it, but just right at the beginning. If you can just put that video back up again.
Which one?
The Jordan one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just sort of move it forward just a little bit where she's preaching or screeching, perhaps is the correct word.
This
but
bit?
A bit further back. There. Just there. Just
okay.
Now look at that still there, okay? This is a supposed Christian. I say supposed because I would say these are extremist Christians. These are nationalist Christians, ultra-nationalist Christians. They're right-wing Christians, in fact. The fact that she's got the British flag in front of her while she's saying what she's saying, and Imran, you did mention the flag here, but the reason why she's doing that, it's an image that this is England, this is our land, Christian land, okay? The fact that it was actually pagan before Christian, let's not talk about that because that's an uncomfortable truth, you see. Islam may well have entered the UK hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but we're not going to talk about that. But before Christianity reached these shores, and before it was westernized and made palatable for the Westerner, because it has no reflection on how Jesus lived his life and the things he abstained from and the way that he worshipped has no bearing on that whatsoever. So it was westernized into this lovely little frilly little package that would be easily absorbed within the Western world, where everything goes, basically. Whatever principles Jesus may have mentioned in the Bible, whatever rules, regulations, whatever things he may have abstained from, as I mentioned, in terms of his dietary obligations and what have you, none of that basically is preserved. What you've now got is this nationalistic, ultra-nationalistic, drive to say we, nutcase Christian preachers like me, are British. This is British identity. You guys are somehow outside of this flag. You don't belong to this flag. There's no need to have this flag there, but it has an important message, which is that we are English. We are from England. The surprising thing is that this lady looks Afro-Caribbean, and I can assure you that a lot of the people who wave these flags and hang these flags up from pillar and post would have a few very nasty things to say about you as well. But hey, I mean, at the end of the day, let's just brush over that as well. Let's just pretend that that doesn't happen. So, and we've had this now with Bob from Speaker's Corner. You know, we've got this from one or two other preachers that come to Speaker's Corner as well, who are aligned with this ultra nationalist agenda, which is basically racism, bigotry, and they pretend to be representatives of Christ and Christianity, as if somehow the second coming of Christianity, the second coming of Jesus rather, Jesus is going to somehow admire their rhetoric, their hatred, their division. A very interesting video I saw the other day. Imran, of somebody asking somebody in America, one of these MAGA supporters, about Jesus actually was a Palestinian and he was, he wasn't white. So would you allow him into the country then? And you know what the woman said? You won't believe it. She said, if he came in legally, if he came in legally, then yes. Can you imagine? So if Jesus, their Lord and Savior, wanted to come into America, he'd have to first qualify. He would first have to qualify the immigration laws to be able to get into the US. This is the level of insanity that we're now seeing with this ultra right-wing Christian Zionist movement, because it is Zionist, because a lot of these people are Zionist zealots as well. But anyway, let's get to the next. But I just found that absolutely hilarious. I think you guys, if you want to see it, you could probably
Muslims in that area, the Muslim community are.
Let's see. So here she is preaching basically that it's an innocent little march. We just want to sing Kumbaya, my Lord. And, we want to just, wave a couple of ribbons around and turn the other cheek and be all very nice to people. But no, they want to deliberately go in there to antagonize people, to disrupt people, to shout and scream at people in order to get a reaction. And so they can have their little 30-second clip of these horrid Muslims. And then you get these American nutcases who are absolutely bonkers out of their brains, who start commenting on those videos. Oh, these are no-go areas, no non-Muslim. Listen, I've driven through Whitechapel. I drive through Whitechapel. There's bars, there's pubs, there's clubs, there's all sorts of things down Whitechapel. Okay, there's nobody stopping those bars from selling alcohol. Nobody's stopping those establishments. And when you go down Brick Lane and you go down a lot of these other areas, you'll see predominantly white people eating in these Bengali restaurants, Indian restaurants, and what have you. It's a mixing pot for all different cultures and races. And there are probably, even though it's a Bengali area, there's certain streets and certain areas, you'll actually see many more white people there than even the Asian people, because they, it's geared to where the clubs and the pubs and a lot of the restaurants and things are. A lot of the Asian people, they run them, but they don't necessarily eat there. So again, it's just absolute total nonsense. We'll move on to the next clip here, which is Jazakallah khair to Brother Jordan, because he actually did give us the timestamps here. So this one is at 6:53. I'll have to stop it there because I can't really do
it anyway, regardless of that she's in a Muslim area. And I think that's part of it. But also I do believe, and I do know this factually, that a lot of Muslims secretly have rejected Islam. And they actually are either, professing in their heart or inside. They're maybe not declared it publicly, but they're people that no longer believe the Islamic religion, or they're converting to Christianity.
Is this men and women?
I know personally women who are in this position, but I've heard from friends and from other Christian ministers that men as well, imams, sheikhs, Islamic leaders, that are currently, and I'm talking all over the world, that are currently still, they look like Muslim, they still profess to be Muslim publicly, but they've renounced Islam and they're really Christians, and they've got a mandate and an agenda to get in the mosques and to teach as many people in their mosques about Christianity.
You speak.
Right. Now, all I'm going to do with that is laugh my head off. I mean, what an absolute load of BS. BS to a level that is just staggering.
I just want to hear what Tough says. 1 second.
Tough. Oh,
Of
Tough is
Islam.
just going to say,
You're
really?
ex-Muslim.
Really?
So you're qualified to discuss.
You're qualified.
Islam.
Yeah.
So no.
So this is. I just wanted to check whether he's going to ask her for any evidence. He doesn't do that. He goes on to another tangent. But that's the first question, isn't it? So let's just understand this. People are secretly converting without telling anyone, but she knows from all over the world. What can you say? That's fine, isn't it? She knows things that people are not declaring openly. She knows. That's amazing, isn't it?
And imams and sheikhs are secretly Christian, but they're still making sure that they stay as the imam of the mosque so they can teach people Christianity in the mosque. I'd like you to show me one example.
There should be loads, right? There should be loads of it because there's all these all over the world, right?
And all the Muslims, Imran, sitting in those congregations are so gullible and so naive that when the imam starts saying, Jesus is God, you have to worship Jesus, right? Everyone's going, yeah, okay. That sounds really interesting. That sounds really good. I mean, it's the level of deception, the level of lies.
But the other thing is just to go back to your point right at the beginning, because one of the things that you said, and by the way, the link will be out soon. So if people want to come up and ask questions, or particularly, this is someone who's representing Christianity. So there's a few people in the chat who are being very brave. If you want to come on and have a conversation, you can sit with us and we'll have a conversation about Christianity, etc. with you, unless you want this person to represent you. And this is what we're trying to sort of demonstrate, that the representation of this person of you as a Christian is ridiculous, and you need to really come with better than this. What this person is doing is really just siding with the far right, and a person of Afro-Caribbean origin siding with the far right who want to deport everyone back to wherever they came from. Turkey's voting for Christmas. I don't know. You tell me what that's all about. But this is the whole point here. The whole point here is that you feel free to come on and have that conversation. But going back to your initial point, Abbas, about for Brother Dawah, when Brother Dawah was on this podcast, whenever Brother Dawah was mentioning facts, there's a little caption that comes up, and the caption says, these figures are disputed. You check. So the people in the comments, you check and please leave a note in the comments. Okay, here we have somebody. All these Muslims, imams, sheikhs all around the world have secretly converted to Christianity, haven't declared it, but I know. And was there a question? Was there what's the evidence? Was there any pushback at all? How do you know this? Where do you get your information from? Nothing. Just Churchill, the bulldog. You seen the advert for Churchill, the insurance company, that bulldog?
Yeah.
This is all you're getting from Duff.
Mm. No, it's worse than that. Just nodding
away without any pushback at all.
No. Actually, I'll be honest with you. You're being kind to Liam here. It's worse than that. Liam is not just nodding his head like the little Churchill dog in the advert. Liam is actually justifying and actually qualifying her statement by saying, because you're an ex-Muslim, you are basically able to say what you're saying accurately. You're representing Islam.
Yeah, one second. So before you go on, let me just bring a wonderful demonstration of these Christians. Look, let's just take this out of the way so you can see it. Do you prefer a head bubble? Wonderfully racist of you. Thank you very much for demonstrating exactly what we're saying. And that's brave. Yeah, that's very brave of you. Well done. Head bubble, yes, that's what we need. Not if he did a head bubble, it would be okay. Yeah, thank you very much for demonstrating your racism. Yes, Karen Abbas, sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
currently still, they look like Muslim. They
anyway, to say head bobble or to nod your head or whatever you want to do, you do what you like, mate, as long as it's true. Otherwise, you're an idiot. Otherwise, you're just a liar. You're a deceiver. And the reason why I'm so passionate about exposing these liars and these people who facilitate lies like Liam Tuff. And Liam Tuff, if he's ever going to get a caption of this video or watches this video, this is just the beginning. We're going to expose you for what you're doing, because what you're doing actually is a lot graver than just your clicks and your likes and your cheap little few pounds that you earn from your videos. What you're doing is you're dividing the community. You're creating an environment of hatred, of misinformation.
But that's the goal of us. That's what the goal of these people are.
Exactly.
The goal of these people is not to bring people together, not to have a proper conversation, but telling you these people are dangerous, these people are violent, these people are taking over everything. Your country's not your country anymore. Be scared, be terrified. The police are on their side, the government's on their side. And so if all the people in authority are on the side of the people who are dangerous and violent towards you, you have to stand up for yourself. They're calling for civil war. That's what these people are calling for. And they're cowardly. They're cowardly because they're doing it completely based upon lies. They're bringing people who lie openly. They don't challenge that. And they show this face. And we've seen the hypocrisy of the West all over the place. They show this face of how wonderful and we're so thoughtful and we're really, you know, our moral standards are so high and we're so high and mighty. No, absolutely not. Scheming scumbags. And this is what we're seeing. If you have to bring on liars, who lie, then this is what you're going to get. You're going to get people who are spreading hate, who are spreading division, and they want violence. And this is just that build up that you're getting, and that's his aim. So I don't think that he's worried about it. I think that's what he wants. Yeah, no, I'm just saying that the hypocrisy is that he when Dawah said about, I fear that, you know, we're moving towards civil war, okay, and I think Liam commented that, you know, that's my fear as well, and he was indicating how that's not something he wants, and yet it's not something he wants, but it's like saying, I don't want the fire to start, but I'm going to enable the ones who are lighting the fire to light those fires. But I'm innocent. I don't want any fire. I don't want any disruption. I don't want any problems. But hey, here's a preacher who's going to help light the fires. So what I'm going to do, very innocently, of course, because I don't really know. So because she's an expert, because she was an ex-Muslim, and of course, if you're an ex-Muslim, that makes you an expert about Islam. Okay, just like if you're an ex-Christian, that makes you an expert about Christianity, or if you're an ex-atheist, that makes you the mouthpiece for what atheism stands for. I mean, what a stupid argument. What a naive, childish argument. Oh, you're ex-Muslim, so you must know what you're talking about, right? It's very interesting. And I've mentioned this many, many times before. And it was in the book that we most of us actually read on Assistant Professor Todd Green. Is it Todd Green? Todd Green, yeah. And you know, it was about presumed guilty. It was about how Muslims are effectively presumed guilty of a crime. They have to almost prove their innocence effectively, right? And one of the things he said in there was a quote from a Rabbi Herschel. Now, the Prophet, peace be upon him, made some profound quotes as well. But for you non-Muslims out there, his quote is actually very interesting. Words make worlds. Okay, it does matter what you say. It does matter what you facilitate is said on your channel. It matters. And the reason why Rabbi Herschel said words make worlds is because this is how it started in Nazi Germany. It's exactly the same process. Demonize the Jews. They're taking over. They're deviant. They're after your women. Protect your women from these horrible old Jews. This is the sort of rhetoric that was being said at the time. And then the cartoons came out. Okay, the cartoons were coming out just as the cartoons are coming out about Muslims, coming out about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, again to antagonize and to create hatred and this mocking and belittling of a people, basically, right? And so eventually what happens is there's clearly huge civil unrest that then leads to
to genocide. Now, I'm not saying that we're necessarily going to go down that route, but what I am saying is that all of these brave far-right thugs are not going to be 5 men fighting 5 men. They're not going to be 2 men fighting 2 men, you know, Queensberry rules. These are going to be, oh, there's a hijabi woman. Let me push her down the stairs. Oh, there's a hijabi woman with her kids. Let me call them terrorists, like a coward, like I am, and then do a runner. That's what's going to happen. So the civil unrest is predominantly going to be against the weak within the community, or the people who can't fight back. So you have a woman, or you have children, or what have you. Now, me and Imran, we've lived through this. We've seen how ugly, how filthy, how depraved this type of behavior is. We've lived through it. We've been chased by skinheads. Some of us have been beaten up by skinheads. Some of us were chased like a fox. The hounds chased the fox, and that's why I actually hated fox hunting, because I knew what the fox felt like when it was being chased by larger animals that wanted to ferociously tear it apart. Okay, I know what that felt like. So that's why we're passionate about this. And Liam Tough and these right-wing, fascist, racist, bigoted people who are platforming these bigots, these liars, are promoting this message, which is feeding the already frenzy that the right wing are used to consuming. This is just more sewage to consume, so their hearts turn even more filthier. And so they react against Muslims and against Islam. What today is normalized would have been seen as extreme right wing 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. This has just been normalized now. But I think, so there is a huge responsibility here for us Muslims as well to call it out. And I'm really happy for Brother Jordan, mashallah, who makes an effort to really call this stuff out and present it in a way that's simple and easy and coherent for people to understand. We're going to go to the next clip, unless you want to add anything, Imran.
No, go for it. We can.
Okay, so here's the next clip. Let's hear what she has to say.
And under Islamic law, on a regular basis, people are killed, beheaded, slaughtered, hung for leaving Islam and converting to Christianity. Muslims have a problem. They look up highly to Saudi Arabia, okay? Egypt. You just look at Egypt. What happens to people in Egypt when they leave Islam? They get killed. I was in Egypt last year in the middle of the year, and a whole family was slaughtered and killed for rejecting Islam and coming to and becoming Christians. This happened in Egypt last year. A whole family was slaughtered. So if these verses are taken out of context, these nations are putting laws in.
Come on, Liam. Where's your caption? Where's your caption under that? This hasn't been verified. Please verify it. Right? I'm sure you can work a keyboard, Liam. I'm sure you could have checked. I'm sure your cousin, whoever it is at the back that films you, could have quickly done a little fact check and realized that in Egypt there is no capital punishment for leaving Islam. So that's BS. And a whole family were slaughtered, sacrificed, for leaving Islam. There are more than 10 million Coptic Christians living in Egypt. More than 10 million of them. Why did they not report this? If the Muslims were so secretive, it happened in public, that even this preacher managed to actually witness this horrible crime. Why wasn't it on social media? Why did nobody talk about this? Why was it not reported? I mean, it's just utter sewage that's coming out of this filthy woman's mouth, quite frankly. Utter lies, utter contempt, utter hatred, covered up in some, she's smiling away as if this really happened. Absolute nonsense. Imran.
Yeah, so what's really interesting is that the claim, she's making a claim about Muslim countries doing this every year, all the time, and she raises a specific incident. Where is this? Where is the reports of any of this? Where is she getting this information from? Is it just trust me, bro? Is that all it is? That's absolutely ridiculous. And you know, the whole point here is that if you look at the way that she's making the claim, is as if Christianity specifically is something special in terms of, if you become a Christian, then they're really gonna, you know, it really bothers them. And it's absolutely ridiculous. There just show us which of these countries that are doing this all the time. When was it? It should be everywhere, right? A whole family in Egypt gets unalived because of this, and it's not. There's no information here. There's no source, and they're not. And that same, you know, the same. We're getting the same again from Tufts. Just, you know, Churchill dog nodding his head
kind of mentality, which I believe is, you know, makes Islamic.
So this, sorry, I accidentally clicked a few things. So, but that's the whole point here. That this is just trust me. I saw this. I heard this. And you know, there's loads and loads of these fake Christian sites. And there's, you know, and there's a great point here in the chat. Let me just bring this off for a second. There's a great point here in this chat, is that she's speaking to an audience that doesn't have any knowledge on the subject. Yes, that's part of the problem, but also she's being put out as somebody who is an authority.
Exactly.
By Liam as well, and that's the problem. She's not an authority. Has brought nothing so far that is credible. And if we go right to the beginning. Let me just go to the beginning of this.
Have allowed things on their watch to happen.
Well, let me just see 1 second, because he says something very important
that just appeals to men's wants. They hate the culture of Britain, and yet they're coming into the UK. Why? 6% of the UK population is Muslim. Why do they have so much power? There's an agenda in this nation for Islam to just take over. I refuse to eat halal meat just out of principle. We are being gagged and muzzled. There's no-go zones, but no one tells you where I can and can't go. Even the police won't go there because they're afraid.
Just imagine what they'll do to you if you continue.
This is
all striving for success, and I'll explain why.
He's not. He didn't even question anything. He just said to her, "What will they do to you if you continue?"
Brought up with a different kind of mentality, which I believe is.
Are you moving the thing? This is just jumping.
Yeah, sorry, I moved it to get to the next clip. But go on. Sorry,
I didn't even show the clip. So there's a point right in the beginning. That's probably what's not happening. So right in the beginning, one of the things she says is that this is the first 13 seconds.
Okay, we'll put it back.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I was trying to find it, and then it kept jumping. And what she says is that this is not Islamic extremism. This is Islam. And I want you to understand that what's being said here. So she's not saying that there's a few people who are bad who are doing this. She's saying it's all of them. This 5% of the population or 6%, whatever of the population, these are all bad. These are all people that are trying to hurt you and harm you and take power. Muslims have no political power in this country. None at all. Literally none at all. And you know who does have the political power. You know it because you can't talk about them. And if you do, you're going to get arrested.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where the problem lies. So, and those, well, that's where your funding's coming from. All these people, Lee and Tufts, etc. This is what's happening. The question really here is that this person is trying to raise hate against Muslims. She's doing it as a Christian. And she's doing it as to defend Christian England or Christian UK or Christian Britain, whatever you want to do. And the only way she can do that is by lying. And this is what's happening here. She's talking about Egypt, for a family of 4 killed. Find any report of this anywhere. It would have been big news, right? She heard it.
No, she said she saw it. She was in Egypt when it actually happened. Apparently, she witnessed it.
So there we go. So we should have had.
But she didn't pull her phone out and film it and then share it with anybody.
But even the report, a newspaper, anything.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Nothing at all.
I mean, it just shows that if we live in an era where actually people will prefer what she is saying above what we're saying, just on the basis that what she's saying agrees with their predispositions and feeds their hatred about Islam and about Muslims. And for those people, we can't really help you because really, I think you're a bit too far gone, quite frankly. You're in the rabbit hole you're in the matrix so far deep that you don't even know you're in there. For the people who perhaps are reasonable and are prepared to actually look at these things critically, and they're prepared to evaluate these things sensibly, rationally, and evidentially, I think you can only come with one conclusion. And I know it's politically incorrect to say, oh, this person is lying. But in her case, the statements are so outrageous that, quite frankly, you can't come to any other conclusion than this is just outright lies and deception. There is no room here to say that this woman is just ignorant and she's read this somewhere or seen, because she claimed that she was in Egypt when this happened, and she says a whole family were killed because they left Islam and they accepted Christianity. Now, if there's no evidence to support that claim whatsoever, in light of there not being any evidence for such an extraordinary event, quite frankly, you would have to say she's made it up. And that is quintessentially what is a lie, basically, knowing that you're saying something that's not true. And she clearly is throughout this entire podcast, by the way. And Liam, what Liam has done here, shamefully, is he has said, well, you were an ex-Muslim, so, you must know what you're talking about. Liam, there are lots of ex-Muslims who, as this woman here, can't even say the word Allah as it's actually pronounced in Arabic. She can't even name the word of, she cannot even call God in the correct pronunciation or way. That's how much of an expert she is, Liam. And you think she's an expert. She can't even say the name of God. It's like somebody who says that they follow Christianity and they're an ex-Christian, and then you ask them to say the word Jesus, and they say something like Bezos. And you say, that doesn't sound like Jesus. That's not really right. And that would be your expert, basically. And this is the sort of people that you're getting on. You're doing it deliberately, clearly, Liam. You're not stupid, clearly not stupid. Now, maybe you're doing it for the money. Maybe you're doing it because these are controversial issues, and a lot of your followers want to be fed this sort of, trash, this sort of rubbish. And because it gets you lots of views, it actually makes you lots of money. But here's the thing, Liam. Here's the thing. When you earn money in these ways, nothing good comes out of it, because what you're doing is you're creating an evil environment where there's going to be violence if you don't stop these type of things. And you are part of the problem. You are part of the problem. What's this comment that you put out there?
So this is a great comment. So if this had happened in Egypt, there were journalists, and the brother named some Egyptian journalists who were anti-Islam Egyptian Muslim journalists, would have kept talking about it.
Exactly.
So he's saying it didn't appear anywhere. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share something very quickly to demonstrate the opposite. So this is 2023. This is a young woman who of Coptic origin who converts to Islam. And then what happened? Let's have a quick read of this. It's the case of a young Egyptian woman who publicly converted to Islam and then appeared a few days later with her family praying inside a church, stirred controversy in social media. Amid reports, she was forced back to Christianity. Now, this is, here we go. She in the video, she stresses that she'd not been kidnapped, and the decision was made by her own free will. This is where she became Muslim. She had a certificate of conversion from Al-Azhar University, and then the young families just reported that she'd been kidnapped, and then she had to be returned by state security. So this is basically what happened. Somebody was converted from Christianity to Islam, and what happened was that they were forced to convert back. So many users criticized what they described as silence of Al-Azhar on the issue and the failure to demand state protect the freedom of those who want to become Muslim. So actually, we see the opposite happening. And this is really the reality, that when there's in places like Egypt, even in places like Pakistan, where you have long-standing Christian communities, going between the two is a really, really big deal for the families, and there's a lot of family pressure. In this country, we've had discussions with people who have become Muslims, and their Christian families has and their Christian family have forced them to come back. At least two people we've personally had interactions with, who've come online on the shows. You can look at our streams, who've come on and said that their families.
Not only that, Imran, but there are lots of countless cases where kids as young as 18, 19 are thrown out of their houses because they've accepted.
Yeah, we see this all the time.
They've been disowned. There are countless cases where, and this is a testimony of most Muslims, converts to Islam, who say that as soon as their Facebook group finds out that they're Muslim, they immediately lose like 40, 50, 60, 70% of the people that were close to them, including friends that grew up with them from nursery and school. They literally cut themselves off because they don't want to have anything to do with the person who's now just converted to Islam. So it says that the video shows that her at the church trembling in front of the Christian priest as her Christian father holds her arm with a firm grip. Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, Egypt is a very traditional culture in many ways, and they won't they don't want to be seen to be splitting up families and what have you. And I think it's, if the girl had chosen to accept Islam, then she should be allowed to do so. Similarly, if somebody ends up not practicing Islam or whatever, there's no duress on forcing them to practice Islam. There are many examples of Muslims who don't follow Islam. They don't practice Islam. They don't pray. They don't fast. They don't really do anything other than perhaps just have a Muslim name. In Islam, there's no concept of forcing somebody to practice the religion of Islam. So this is just complete and utter total nonsense. Now, the fact that she's been exposed, I think we are going to be making further videos and shorts as well to expose the lies that channels like Liam Tuff are promoting and expose them, because I think they deserve to be exposed. But let's
read
get to the next,
these verses that say, as Christians, we're called to contend for the faith, to defend the faith, to guard the faith, to stand for the faith. There's nothing about Christianity that's soft. You look at the early Christians, the early followers of Jesus, they were not soft. On a daily basis, they faced death to defend the faith, to contend for the faith, to stand for the faith. That's the type of Christianity that we need in this time, one that rises up in its full strength, that guards again, that stands again, that defends again, that refuses to be a pushover again. And because we've been a pushover for so long, I believe, like so many people that you see converting to Islam, I believe it's because they've seen this weak Christianity. There's been a pushover that just sits back like a doormat and just lets all this happen on its watch and doesn't stand up.
And in comparison, you've got Islam, which is a force.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's strong.
Okay, so here now again another trope, basically, and another pleading victim. We're victims. We Christians are victims. We're under attack under this sort of muscular Christianity, muscular Islam. Islam is like oppressing us Christians. We need to actually be more, apparently, like the disciples were. We need to be have this muscular Christianity where we need to be fighting back. What exactly does that mean, Imran? What exactly is muscular Christianity? Let's look back through history, Imran. What did muscular Christianity look like?
Spanish Inquisition.
Exactly. Spanish Inquisition. People like yourself, young lady, were inferior in the church because you were not white, the white person, because God was white, according to the church. You would have been, just like I would have been, a sort of a subhuman. We would not have been accepted. I'm assuming this lady is Afro-Caribbean. Afro-Caribbean means that you have African roots. And I think 30% or 35% of Africans were Muslims who were forced into Christianity. That's right, forced into Christianity. So it could well be that her forefathers were actually willfully and voluntarily and of their own choice had accepted Islam and had Christianity thrusted upon them by the sword and the whip. Okay,
Abbas, there's a difference here now. So I agree with her that Christianity has become weak.
Yeah,
I agree with her that Christians have left let go of their standards, have capitulated to secular society, have capitulated to, you know, the lowering of the standards that we see that's pushed by cultural changes like the media, movies. All these things have lowered the standard of the society, and Christianity, rather than standing against these changes in their standards and their beliefs, etc., have just allowed it to happen to them. But that's got nothing to do with the Muslims.
Exactly.
And her solution is like stand up and fight and be strong. Who are you saying is you have to stand up against the causes, right? You can't go to another group of people who are, like he was talking about, a force, which is a militaristic term that he's applying to Muslims. Again, very dangerous, calculated to make it look like a, you know, this army or these. No, the Muslims are strong in their faith because we understand what our rules and regulations are. We don't change them willy-nilly just because the society is changing, and that's the problem. So don't go to another group and say you guys are following your religion and that's why you're making us look bad or you're making us lose it. No, go to church on a Sunday, get married, have kids, start dressing appropriately, start speaking appropriately as your scriptures would have you do, and start to show that Christianity is something that people can turn to and it will help them to better their lives and be more connected to God. Start to do that. I would like to see a more religious society. In this society, if it's claiming to be Christian, more Christian society, make it more Christian. It was better when people were more religious. When you look around now, you just see drugs and alcohol and nudity and fornication everywhere. This is all against Islam. Islam doesn't look like this. If we stay away, we stay away from it. It doesn't mean there are some people who don't. There aren't some people who partake in it. But it's not because of a religion. Our religion teaches against it, and we stand strong. We try and stand strong against these things. And the Christianity isn't doing that. That's the problem. Now, that's not a problem of Muslims. That's not. Muslims aren't causing Christians to be weak in their religion. The reason that the Christians become Muslim is because they understand that what the truth is. So when Islam and Christianity go head to head in discussions, the truth becomes clear. You can just look at any point you want to talk about. It becomes very clear where the truth lies. And then it's a personal choice if you want to accept or not accept. That's a different thing entirely. The reality is that the standards are maintained. The standards are maintained and in Islam, but they're not maintained in Christianity. And that's why people are going away in droves. So if you want to stand up and be strong and, you know, be this forceful, be the people who are like the companions of Jesus, peace be upon him, then that means you've got to start practicing Christianity, and that's what you're not doing, and that's the reason people are turning away. That's why the churches are closing down. That's why you're having these problems within your society of drugs and alcohol and unruly behavior, etc. Disrespect for elders, disrespect for any authority, complete disrespect for the church, etc. That's why it's happening. When people put out horrible things for on television about Jesus, peace be upon him, you should definitely be up in arms about it. You should definitely be rattling some cages and speaking about it. It's not it's free speech. No, you have to say this is not appropriate expression in terms of free speech. This is not something that should be allowed. This is something that should come under either hate speech or should be something that's curtailed because this is a Christian country. This is what you should do. Now, because Muslims do this, why are you complaining? Why are you complaining? I don't understand. It's nothing. Your lack of the weakness within your religion and the people that are leading you is nothing to do with Islam. And we never said to any of your priests or your bishops or anything, be weak in your religion. No, that's something that you guys have decided to do. And this is part of the problem that how many archbishops are there or how many bishops are there in the House of Lords? So this person says that the religion does not dictate politics. But how many bishops are there in the House of Lords? The king is the leader of the church in this country, of Christianity within this country. If you're going to claim it's a Christian country, then you can't make these things. And it's really important. It's really important that you actively try and embody the way that you live your life according to your religion.
And basically, what you're admitting is you're saying religion does not dictate politics. Effectively, what you're saying is God's law, God's morality, God's teachings of honesty and integrity and putting your neighbor first and community and all of those values should not come into politics. So effectively what you're saying is that politics should be governed by how it's governed at the moment, okay? Which is what? Which is a secular democracy, yes? And how's that going for us? How is that going for us? Who is actually in control of the political parties in this country? Who are the lobbyists? Follow the money, my friend. It's either foreign governments that we can't talk about, otherwise we get labeled as being racist, or it's industry, billionaires who control the puppets, who are our politicians and our leaders. And that's where secular democracies end up. This is what's happened in America, where you have 85% of the politicians who are being breastfed by AIPAC, doing the bidding of a foreign country. This is why you have the United Kingdom, and you have, again, politicians who are friends of Israel, friends of here, friends of... How about being friends of England? Friends of your own country, putting them first. How about that? How about the industry leaders that bribe our politicians? We call it lobbying. We call it campaign donations. We all know what it's about. We all know exactly what's going on. And we turn a blind eye to it because we don't have a better solution. So when you say Christianity should not enter politics, or politics has nothing to do with your religion, this is where the problem is, my friend. Now, what's happened, Imran, I think you've mentioned it quite clearly, is that you Christians have capitulated. You've given up. You've surrendered to secularism and liberalism. They have bashed you to insignificance. And now you feel bashed and you feel trodden on. And so what do? You have to blame someone. You have to blame somebody for why the churches are empty. Why in a potential church with a congregation of potentially 800 people or 1,000 people, you have 6 people sitting there. Often middle-aged or old people, because, that's their only lifeline of any community, because the kids don't look after their parents anymore, so they're alone at home. So they go to the church just to have some sort of a community spirit, eat a couple of digestives and have a cup of tea and have a little chat. And that's what the churches are predominantly being used for. Okay. Is that because of Muslims? Are we standing outside your churches telling you not to enter, not to pray? You have capitulated. You have given up to Tinder, to sexual immorality. You have capitulated to having children out of wedlock. More than 50-60% of children born in this country outside of wedlock. It was Christianity would have had something to say about that. But it doesn't have anything to say about it now, because you're afraid that you lose the 6 people that are in the church now. And so because you're trying to constantly fight to get people to come, to try to practice, to prevent churches from closing down, you can't say anything to people anymore. You can't say, look, not getting married, having lots of sexual partners is not good for society. It's not good. It's not wholesome. It's not religiously acceptable. Instead of saying that, you have to say, well, as long as they're in a loving relationship, it's okay. There seems to be a lot of loving relationships going on Tinder at the moment, and that's the sort of capitulation. That's the sort of surrendering of your values that have ended you up in a place where you are today. Now, I'm not saying that with glee. I'm not saying that because that's something that I want to see. I think believing in God actually does give you an accountability that not believing in God doesn't. I think having morals and good standards and living the life of a good Christian that has compassion and love and consideration for his neighbors and his community and what have you, these are good things. These are positive things. But you've left all of that, and you want to blame somebody, and so the only people that you can blame are Muslims. It's their fault that we're not Christian. And I would say that no, it's not our fault at all. It's your fault because you've sacrificed and kept sacrificing all of your principles until now. As the saying goes, if you don't stand for anything, you fall for everything. And that, quite frankly, is what's happened now. So we move to the next clip now anyway. There's so much nonsense that this woman says. But did you want to add anything to that, Imran, at all?
No, that's fine, boss.
Let's get to the next stupid clip from this.
We believe about Jesus, that we believe is the Son of God and not a prophet. And I believe that the pro-Palestinian, the Palestinian agenda is an Islamic agenda. You'll see it when they chant Allahu Akbar. That's nothing to do with Palestine. That's Islam, and that's what I've had spoken against me when I've been preaching, and I've been threatened on numerous occasions by Muslim men for using apologetics and for challenging who Allah is.
So this is one of the biggest, nastiest and filthiest slurs that she says, which is that these far-right nut jobs equate people who are marching against a genocide to somehow extremist Islamist views, to somehow discredit a people who say, actually, you know what, killing innocent children and women and innocent men is actually wrong. And it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting that the peacemakers, that the people who are calling out the genocide are being portrayed by this extremist evangelist Christian, and she is an extremist and she is an evangelist, and she's a bit of a nut job and a liar, okay? But she wants to pretend as if somehow there's another agenda. You need to be suspicious of these people who are marching. The fact that there are numerous thousands of Jews who are also marching with the Muslims, and thousands of Christians who are also marching with the Muslims, and atheists who are marching with the Muslims, okay, it seems to go over her head. It seems to go completely over her head. So, you know, I don't know, just put that comment back on again. I just taken the screen off. But so how can she call herself a follower of Jesus and slur innocent Palestinians? Exactly. So there are Palestinian Christians, and if she wore her crucifix and walked down the streets of Jerusalem and went to the church there and what have you, she'll soon find out how loving they are towards Christians in that area, because there are numerous videos of Christians getting spat at and rubbish being thrown at them and being insulted. We killed your God and all of this sort of stuff that's actually said to them. And they try to put on a brave face. They try to smile and they try to move the camera because they don't want to show that embarrassing side of what Israel has become. But that's the reality. That is the reality, Imran.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Sorry, I was actually thinking of the next point coming on, because she says so many things that are really, they're just slurs and tropes. They're not based on anything, and the claim to anything is, this happened to me, and it's again painting the Muslims as these horrible, violent people, particularly the men. It's, you know, if you saw the example of the preaching, megaphones and all these people around her and marching into Muslim areas, screaming and shouting. Yeah, some people are going to shout back at you. That's what's going to happen. And she's not engaging in apologetics. That's not apologetics. Screaming at somebody with a megaphone is not apologetics. That's if anything, abuse. And if you want to have a conversation, then have a conversation, but don't pretend you're having a conversation with a megaphone. We've seen that before. We know what tactics they are, to go in and provoke and say that you were having a conversation and the person didn't take it well. Yeah. That's exactly how not to take it, how to make sure that somebody's not going to take something you're doing well, and then to generalize that about men. No, that's not the case. It's again a slur again, one more time.
Yeah, and so we're going to put the next clip up here. Now, Christians, you're welcome to join the stream to let us know what's going on. Why is this type of behavior actually becoming quite normalized? And, we're constantly being told that we should be criticizing and we should be, condemning acts of violence or people who promote violence or promote disinformation or promote lies and what have you. We're constantly being told about how we should be taking a stance. I'd actually like to hear your take on it. Why are so many Christians, especially those who are evangelists, Christians, especially those who are out there preaching, why are you actually performing or acting in a way as if you're a victim and that somehow you need to stand up and you need to fight? And exactly who are you to fight with? And I'd also like you to find out. I'd like to find out actually if you're one of these people who believes that there's a two-tier system here where actually Muslims are favored in the legal system and by the police. I'd like to find the mechanics of how the police, who are effectively drawn from society, generally from society, from all walks of life. We don't have a class system here in the police force. You'll have people from very working class backgrounds to slightly, higher working class to middle class to lower upper middle class or whatever. Okay, there's a spectrum of people clearly, and people who are perhaps left school with just GCSEs to those who've done A-levels and even possibly those who've had degrees and things, and they've joined the police force. So I'd like to know what the mechanism is actually whereby the police are taught that you must give special treatment to Muslims. How are they actually, how are they any less anti-Muslim than the rest of the community? I'd love to hear from you. So we have put the link out and we'll periodically put the link out as well. So it'd be interesting to hear as a Christian from your side as to what is actually going on here, whether you actually condemn or do you support this type of behavior.
One other thing before we move on is this thing about Allahu Akbar. If you claim to be a Muslim, at least say it properly, and to say that this is something that that differentiates anything from Palestine. Allahu Akbar means God is greater. God is greater. So whatever you're focusing on, whatever the issue is, whatever the problem is, God is greater. So this is why it's part of the call to prayer. Like you might be busy with your work, but Allahu Akbar. So God is greater. And this is the meaning of it. And Muslims say this all the time. At times of surprise, at times of happiness, at times of it's used all of the time. And the equivalent would be something like Hallelujah for Christians. And they make this a sinister thing. Oh, they say this thing. Oh, and the people that are being killed and massacred in Palestine are the Muslims. So of course they're going to say this.
Yeah, that's how she said it. She said it in a way where, I don't know if she had to read it off her hand, because she has been reading off her hand as well, which is quite hilarious.
There's she says it like alu, like a potato.
Yeah,
and it's just like, I think, what is wrong with so it's, and this is like really it really does underline for me that whatever there is in terms of knowledge of Islam that she may or may not have had, it's really trifling. Really trifling. You wouldn't let this person sit with a 2-year-old to teach them the basics of how to greet somebody, let alone anything more than that. So I think qualified. Maybe she's more qualified than Leon Tufts, who hasn't even read the Quran but claims all the things about it.
Yeah, exactly. Keeps saying it's in the Quran. It's in the Quran when he hasn't got a clue of what is in the Quran because he's never read it, and that just shows.
You don't have to read stuff nowadays, and you can just chat GPT it and it will tell you, innit?
Yeah, of course. Well, the problem is for them, if you chat GPT stuff about Islam, it normally corrects you. And it will actually tell you, no, you have that all wrong. actually the verse was never understood that way. It was not meant that way, and it's referring to this. But they don't want to go to Chat GPT when of course it clarifies that they're on a sticky wicket where they don't know what they're talking about. They only want to go to Chat GPT to just try to search for things and use it like Google. That's what they're good for. Anyway,
and under Islamic law, on a regular basis, people are killed, beheaded, slaughtered, hung for leaving Islam and converting to Christianity. Muslims have a problem. They look up highly to Saudi Arabia. Okay.
So here she basically says that people who are basically leaving Islam are beheaded, they're killed, and Liam is just there nodding away. Oh, that is awful. That is really horrible. Even though it's not true, but that is nasty. That's horrible. So I'll just keep nodding my head as if I'm really concerned and I'm taking all this information in. But what a lot of nonsense, honestly. What a complete load of tosh. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Imran, but we can go to the next.
So this is what, I don't know what time frame this is. Is it?
So this was 18. This was 18 minutes. The 18 minutes. So
one of the things that's interesting here is that what we know is that since colonial times, that Islam is applied in a mixed way. So there's very few countries that apply completely the Sharia. And she lists a few of them. So one of the things she says, you see if she brings that list up of her listing, she says Iran, Sudan, Somalia, Afghanistan, Eritrea, and Saudi Arabia. And she says that these apply Sharia law. They enforce it. Eritrea is like 50% Christian.
Yeah, I know.
Or more, which instead it's not even it's not even a majority Muslim country. And so it's a secular country. They have a secular combination of religions. And it's just making the claim is insufficient. You've got to show this person, these people, this is the statistics, this is where the information is from, or who were killed for whatever XYZ. And it's just a listing countries that might be controversial. And I don't know where she got Eritrea from. It's, Christian. It's more than half of it is Christian. So her information is wrong.
Well, the fact is she's making everything up, so why not bring up Eritrea as well?
This is the problem, though. This is the point here is that it sounds foreign, so it must be true what she's saying. And people need to be more nuanced to understand. Just don't take everything that's given to you on a plate by people like this. You've got to be questioning. You at least have the decency to go to a Muslim and say, "Is this what you believe?" And they can maybe explain to you. Because Leon Tufts has no idea what Islam teaches at all. At all, he's got no idea what Islam teaches.
Even if people were lazy and they didn't want to go and speak to a Muslim because they don't like brown people and they don't like Muslims or whatever, at least go and Chat GPT, dude. At least just Google what she's saying. Is this true? Do Muslims actually believe this? And don't go into right-wing, nasty, ridiculous websites. Go into academic websites. Go into places where you can actually get statistics. Okay, so she makes another claim here. Assalamu alaikum, brother Samad. So she makes another ridiculous claim here. Let's hear this.
Ideology that let's just talk about Britain as the British people, what we've experienced in the name of Islam in the UK. Okay, let's go back to 2007, the London bombings, the underground tube bombings. Yeah, then they will look at what happened then with Lee Rigby, stabbed to death by an Islamic extremist. Yeah. Then you go back to in 2017 Manchester, the Manchester Arena bombing, where an Islamic extremist, bombed the arena in Manchester, killing 22 kids. We have continual violence that is done in the name of Islam. In the name of Islam. We saw it with a synagogue in Manchester recently, with a Jewish synagogue. We saw it with Bondi Beach. And then there's been multiple things where we're seeing a genuine concern around Islam and the ideology of Islam. So for the Islamophobia law to be even discussed in the Houses of Parliament, to be even discussed by our Prime Minister and our leaders, is an insult to the British people.
So here she makes two ridiculous claims. And by the way, she claims that all of these perpetrators of these crimes were actually born in the UK. They were born abroad. They were all immigrants, and in fact, it turns out that most, if not all of them, actually were born in England. So that's untrue. The other thing she says very interestingly is that we shouldn't even talk about Islamophobia, because
she calls it a law.
Yeah,
it's not a law. They're just discussing definition of it.
Exactly.
Trying to agree the definition, let alone.
Yeah, exactly. No, but they don't want to talk about Islamophobia because anti-Semitism exists. If you have racism, that exists. But if you hate Islam, that is legitimate in her eyes and in the eyes of these nutcases. It's actually a legitimate criticism, and it doesn't matter what you say about Islam or what you say about Muslims, because it's all true. Effectively, that's what she's arguing. Okay. Now, the other reason I find it astonishing is that this is a woman of color. So she should know better. She should know what it feels like to be marginalized, to be ridiculed, to be treated differently because of the way she looks. Okay. But she seems not to care about that. As long as she can get her boot in against Islam and against Muslims, she's happy to do so, basically. But we shouldn't even talk about Islamophobia, because everybody that effectively hates Islam is legitimate in their view, legitimate in their right to hate Islam because Islam is really that bad. Effectively, that's what she's saying. I mean, scary times, really, if people actually believe that. Really scary times. But Brother Sarmad, why don't you add to that if you need to?
Assalamu alaikum, first of all.
I
was Ramadan been treating you, brother.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Unfortunately, I couldn't fast this year, not even last year, because of my diabetes. So.
Oh, subhanallah.
It's still long for those days, you know. But they issued actually a fatwa 2 years ago. I came across it 2 years ago, and they said that for diabetics who are on insulin pump, they're not allowed to fast.
But I think, Brother Sarmad, the beautiful thing about Islam is that Allah rewards you for your niyyah, your intention, right? And if your intention is to fast, and for whatever reason, qadar Allah, you're not able to do so,
Yes.
then alhamdulillah, we are alhamdulillah fortunate, and we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of our condition, and Allah will reward us for our intention. And your intention, I'm sure, was to fast if you could. And the fact that you couldn't, inshallah ta'ala, Allah will reward you.
Just you miss it, Brother Abbas.
Of course.
You know, you miss this feeling. You miss that you're really doing something, you know.
Yeah.
But I envy you guys. So, mashallah, may Allah accept from all of us. Where do I begin with this? So first of all, the thing she said about Egypt. Let me get this first. I wrote in the comments about these two guys, the two journalists, which you highlighted, right? So the journalists in Egypt who, they control the media, so to speak, the private media, not the state or the statal media, not the governmental, the private media, which is even more popular than any other kind of media in Egypt, right? Both radio and television. Most, if not all of them, are not the kind of Muslims you'd expect. I mean, we have two figures, for example, and this is known by all Arabs. It's not, like something that I personally know because I lived in Egypt for more than 6 months. This is a well-known fact. We know that we have, for example, Brahim Isa, first of all. He's a guy who's very known, well-known, like he was up top during the time of Hosni Mubarak and these guys. And now he's not out of the scene, so to speak. So he's still in charge. And this guy just spews anti-Islamic agendas. He has these talk shows. One of the things that he suggested, for example, is to ban adhan, believe it or not. Adhan, according to him, had to be, done privately. They should not.
And this is on Egypt TV, where everybody can watch this.
This is private Egyptian TV, and these guys have
according to this woman, then he must have been immediately pulled out of the studio and beheaded. Then
they not only that, the smallest events that have anything to do with Islam that could be criticized, they would put it and keep talking about it for months. It's really irritating, it comes to the level where it becomes really boring, So they overkill all of these subjects. None of them has ever discussed this, So this is just a blatant lie to start with. We do have, however, videos of this, and I know that Brother Imran already showed the article about this sister who converted to Islam, and she was forced by her father to go back to the church. And the video is still there, by the way. This was highlighted by many Egyptian brothers. These brothers, some of them might be a little bit, might take it too far sometimes, because there is a lot of friction. Let's put it this way. I mean, we're talking about a popularity in Christian minority in Egypt, more than 12 million people. Most of these are within the, out in farms. They live in very secluded societies, as the Muslims do in these societies. There's always friction, not because of only religion. It could be attributed to many other factors as well, when it pertaining to, watering your farm, for example, these economic problems, even tribal issues, right? So there has always been friction in Egypt between Muslims and some touching between Muslims and Christians, not to the level that there was, killing and whatnot. It never got to that level. But there are incidents. There might be incidents where clashes do happen, not in Cairo. I lived in Cairo for more than 6 months. It's probably one of the safest places you could ever, back then anyway, you could live in. You go out 2 o'clock in the night, a.m. It's like 9 o'clock in London. The amount of people that are out on the streets. So these events do not take place in urban areas in Egypt. But I do know that there might be some issues in Egypt where some friction might take place, and it might shape or reshape its form and take a Christian-Muslim conflict kind of, conflict, so to speak. But what we have when it comes to purely religious conflicts is the oppression and the way that they persecute the Christian communities, the church, the Christian church, the Egyptian church, the way they persecute their converts to Islam. Some of them are killed. Some of them are persecuted in a way that they, especially for females, because they have, because of the tribal society they live in, they have no way to go, like a secluded place to go to. And most of them would have to go back or revert back to Christianity. So these are known events. There are actually 1 or 2 agencies that I know of that actually document these events. It's not like we're talking about tens of people that are documented, probably 1 or 2, but I never heard anybody who was oppressed because they left Islam, except for one guy, to be completely transparent, and that guy converted to Shiism. And he became really popular. He was he became real popular amongst Muslims, amongst some Shias as well, because he was really vulgar. Really, really vulgar. He relocated to Iran and then came back to Egypt and was killed by his village. And that we have a video of. That I saw the video myself when it was first, put on YouTube, because he was a known figure. But we don't have these events she's talking of. I do have from my home country, Iraq, however, where Christians actually are killed and caught on video. We have a young sister, may Allah have mercy on her soul, who converted to Islam, left Christianity, converted to Islam from Ba'shiqa, a very known village, Christian village, a long history of Christianity, and she was stoned to death. She was lured by her parents to come back. As soon as she arrived, they caught her on video. Everybody started stoning her. The poor soul started, becoming really dazzling. She couldn't even walk anyway, obviously because of the many traumas she got to her skull. And then she fell to the floor, and everybody, started really bashing her head. So that we have videos of. Nobody speaks about these events, by the way, right? We have the crimes that the Assyrian brigades, it's called the Assyrian brigades, who joined the mobilization forces, so to speak. The Assyrian brigades were purely Christian young men who committed atrocities against Muslims, especially in Mosul. Raping women, killing indiscriminately, whatever. Nobody speaks about that. Actually, the guy who was a commander of one of these brigades is the same guy, lo and behold, who went to Sweden and started burning the Quran. That nobody talks of either. He's on a wanted list in Iraq because he committed atrocity against civilians, not because he... And this is known. I mean, you could go to the Iraqi authorities and ask them. He was wanted in Iraq. He left Iraq, fled to Sweden, applied for asylum, right? And because he was Christian, he probably thought that he would get some kind of impunity or whatever. And when nobody obviously paid him much attention, he started, he tried to gain more popularity by setting the Quran on fire. So nobody talks about these people. Even his own village denounced him because they knew that this might create too much conflict with the Muslims, right? But the amount of violence that we have from Christians in our areas in the Middle East, especially in these secluded areas or areas where the role of law is not too consolidated, so to speak, right? In villages and whatnot. The amount is just beyond description. I myself happen to know a sister who converted to Islam, got married, and that's in Mosul, by the way. I know her personally. So nobody could tell me that I'm just making it, off the top of my head. I know her personally. She converted to Islam, got married to a Muslim in Mosul, right? And when she was longing for her parents tried to lure her back to their village. And another, I think it was her cousin from her mother's side who called her and said, listen, you can't come back. They will kill you. They will literally kill you. They have been planning for this. They've been trying to lure you back to your village so that they could get rid of you. They consider it to be, like some sort of shameful for the tribe and whatnot. But this happens. We know that. I'm not saying that it's exclusive to Christians, by the way. Muslims in many villages do have that as well. So it's more like a tribal practice than anything else. But nobody would kill anybody because they left Islam. And this is where actually I find it really interesting.
The thing here is that every accusation is actually a confession. And these people are out there constantly talking about violence in Islam, violence by Muslims. But like you said, they don't talk about all of these things. Not only do they not talk about all of these things, but there is clearly a link between extremist Christianity and the Iraq war and the Afghan war and the war against the Yemen and Syria and, the current, war or massacres that are happening by Israel. Okay. This was already planned. The two blue lines on the map of the flag of Israel is the Euphrates to the Nile. They want to occupy parts of Saudi, Syria, Lebanon, a large chunk of Egypt, because this is their greater Israel project. It's an extremist religious ideology that is behind. And, you have Benjamin Netanyahu, the wanted war criminal, the vile murderer, the killer, who actually cited their holiday Purim, which is actually the commemoration of the Assyrian, the ancient Iranian Persian community, and they're freeing from them. And so all of this and this is being mentioned during the war, and where the war is about to start, and Amalek and all of these things, the Amalekites. Don't forget what Amalek did to you. It's all extremism. It's all religious extremism.
I think that's the problem, Brother Abbas, when you don't have a well-defined set of laws, how to engage in, say, for example, social activities, how to engage in war, how to engage in peace with your enemies. They don't have these set of laws. And to be charitable to them, the Christians, I would sometimes argue that what the atrocities they did in our areas, where they would massacre complete tribes, wipe them out. Like we have tribes that were wiped out of earth by the Christians. Now we could only ask ourselves, why do we have in Iraq, for example, only the Chaldeans, which is a very weird sort of diversity of religion. We have only Chaldeans in Iraq who are Catholics, right? And the Assyrians are Orthodox. Why is that? Because there are some historical reports that when the Romans took over, right, they accused the Chaldeans, because the Chaldeans were the descendants of the rulers of Babylon, the second Babylonian state, which invaded Israel and the captivity story and all of that, Nebuchadnezzar, the king. So they obviously they still have some grudges against them. So there are reports. I'm not saying this is a fact, by the way, but there are reports that when the Romans, because they follow the Catholic Church, when they take over west of the Euphrates River, and there was still a lot of Chaldeans or Chaldean remnant societies there, they coerced them into Christianity. The Christianity they knew, because they were still not, they didn't embrace Christianity until very recently, actually. I mean, recently in the Christian, according to the Christian church, so to speak, or Christian calendar. Whereas Assyrians were a little bit advanced. They embraced Christianity before them. And that's why you have the schism between the two churches in Iraq, for example. This is one thing of just
what I'm saying
that their history is really bloody.
Yeah, of course.
Christian history is filled with atrocities, filled with crime, because they have no compass.
No standards. You know what it is? The other thing, Sarmad, is that a lot of people sort of switch off when we start talking about ancient history. We start talking about 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, even though it's very relevant. But the point is, we're seeing it today. We're seeing effectively supposed Christian countries with Christian leaders, and America, the biggest tyrant and probably the killer in the 20th and the 21st century, probably the single biggest killer of people, okay, around the world, or certainly amongst the top 2 or 3, right? Whether you look at it from direct warfare, or you look at it from indirect sanctions and how many people have died as a consequence, you're talking about tens of millions of people around the world, right? And I want to just address this comment here, Imran, because it's called, no, Abbas, it's called freedom and democracy. Are you having a laugh?
I think the brothers bring
being sarcastic. Yeah.
He's agreeing with it. He's being sarcastic. Yeah.
I don't think he.
No, he's being sarcastic. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the point here is that you've got a situation today where and there are wars being fought. I'm sorry, John. I misunderstood. There are wars being fought with Christian ideological and Jewish ideological baggage. And that's the whole point of what extremism is. And when you have a person like this woman here who claims that, Islam is so violent and Islam is the one that's so oppressive, well, why is it that we Muslims are the biggest victims of your Christian bombs and your Christian agendas? And yet we're the guilty ones. We're the ones who apparently are the bad people here.
Let me share a personal experience I had. This was in Europe, right, where I used to live. And there was an assembly of Iraqi Christians. So they invited me. I was like a known doctor in my area. I was accepted and some people liked me, so they just extended an invitation and said, would you please just, we would really love to have you on. So I went there with another colleague of mine, both of us Iraqis. My colleague was a Turkmen, actually, who's not adherent to Islam. He had even some really bad ideas about Islam, whatever. So we went and sat there. The entire event. So first of all, they invited a member of parliament to that event, an Iraqi as well, who was obviously born in exile. And the entire event was about one idea, selling one single idea. We Assyrians are the true inhabitants of Iraq, and everybody else. And when I say Assyrians, by the way, Assyrians are by definition Christians. You have no other religion. The Assyrian ethnicity, for some reason, all of them embraced Christianity. We Assyrians are the true inhabitants of Iraq. Look at our history. We've been pushed out. We've been blah, blah, blah. We've been persecuted by the Muslims. And I'm just sitting there, and I started, screaming out loud after probably an hour. I started screaming at my colleague and said, why are we here? He said, you're the one who brought us here, man. Why are you speaking to me? I was really, out of goodwill, I attended because I thought that was, okay, they're Iraqis. We're just, it's a national event. I'll just go there and then probably create some new friendships. It was really embarrassing because all of the things they said about history was incorrect. I don't know who was even feeding them this history. They show no appreciation to Iraqi history whatsoever. And not only that, they flip and change facts the way they want. So since then, I started, thinking, this was, by the way, this was back in 2011. This is not new. This event was back in 2011. So when events started ensuing, with all these brigades that started forming, the atrocities and whatnot, I was really surprised because there was something building up. The Christian priest, who's an Egyptian, who lives in the US, what was his name? Zakaria Butros. He owns his own TV channel, which is the only thing they air is anti-Islamic propaganda. He was the one who edited the film, or the really vulgar film, really filthy, with some obscene scenes, about the Prophet ﷺ, and one of his wives, and you start wondering, is this what Christianity, came down to? Just spreading anti-Islamic hatred? What would you even, I don't know. I mean, I don't even see, in the long run, how this would be beneficial to anybody.
I think, to be honest, there's a psychological thing going on here, really, which is that when Imran alluded to it earlier, when you do not have legitimate grounds to justify your beliefs within Christianity, and you see Islam all around you spreading, and people converting to Islam, including rabbis and priests and all of these people that are often educated in their own religion. I mean, if you look at, for example, even Brother Paul Williams, Paul Williams and his channel, he wasn't somebody who was unread and didn't know what Christianity was. He was very well versed, very well educated, actually, within Christianity. At that later part of his journey, he even became a Catholic. And then he realized, actually, that when he studied Islam, that it resonated with him because the message of Islam being so pure, preserved and true. So what do? When you see all of these people around you accepting Islam, you don't have an argument to bring those people to your religion, as Islam has those extremely robust and strong arguments to bring people to Islam. What do you do? What do you have? The only thing you can do, Sarmad, is that you can try to sling as much mud as possible, hoping that some of it will stick. And at the very least, the people who are nominal Christians, cultural Christians, they'll just stay status quo. They'll just stay where they are. They won't become Muslims because that's a thorn in their backside. That really hurts, okay? That really hurt. And in fact, the interesting thing here is that often the Jewish rabbis, actually, they say that the Muslims are actually following the Noahide laws, that we are actually believers because our monotheism is actually in accordance to what they would perceive to be, completely and defined as being completely monotheistic. And the Christian is actually referred to as an idolater. They regard them as following idols, basically, by worshipping Jesus and other than God. Okay, that's the reality. So when Christianity doesn't have any argument it can provide for its own strength, what is it going to do? It's going to sling mud, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Imran, you haven't spoken for a while, and I think you want to present something as well. So,
I just wanted to show, this is, if we doubt that these things are religiously motivated, you just hear the language. They talk about biblical responsibility to the region, and really they're talking about furthering the bringing on of the apocalypse, etc. And this is the leader of that. I'm not going to play it, but I'll show you another clip. This is the person who's the sort of leading the prayer, and this is what I wanted to show you. This is that person, the spiritual advisor of the one and only Orange Man. Yeah, listen to this.
In the quarters of heaven, victory, 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 victory. For angels are being released right now. Angels are being dispatched right now. Hamanda aka ata raka teda baka sanda ata ambo osa kata rite eke banda ata rike didi ashata. For angels have even been dispatched from Africa right now. Africa right now. Africa right now. From Africa right now. They're coming here. They're coming here. In the name of Jesus. From South America. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here. They're coming here. From.
I mean, I don't know. Just as an example, this is actually like a prayer in front of all of these people, and she's doing the speaking in tongues or whatever. But these are, guys, if you're a Christian and this is a spiritual advisor to, the Orange Man, then what is it that what are you believing? I mean, if this is what, and then this is the thing. A 5-year-old will look at that and think that there's something wrong with that lady. She needs some help. But the most powerful, the leader of the most powerful army in the world, well, $1 trillion budget, invading like 7-8 countries in the last year, is or helped the invasion of 7 or 8 countries in the last year. This is the person that's guiding them, who's rat-a-tatting on a microphone, and is saying that this is part of I mean, is this Christianity? We had that other woman on before, Virginia, whatever.
Well, and Imran, there's a recent report that's just come out, according to what you're just saying there, is that army officers are complaining that their sergeants and their generals are saying that Trump is anointed by Jesus to go and attack Iran. And they're complaining that this is ridiculous. What the hell is happening here?
But look at this comment. What this going on here, this behavior is one thing, but what she teaches is more important. Imagine that. If someone was doing that, I would be sectioning them, not learning from them. Sectioning them under the Mental Health Act.
And you got, by the way, she's got her hand on the shoulder of Trump, and she's praying for Trump.
Yeah.
And she's promoting Trump.
Yeah.
And the guy is mentioned in not only in the Epstein files, but there's now reports coming out of allegations of women who are signing, documents to suggest that they were actually, and I don't want to say the word, but by Trump and by Epstein. Yeah. And these are your heroes. These are the people you promote. These are apparently anointed by God. Oh wow!
To be
Jesus
honest,
anoints.
To be honest, I have no issue with anybody believing what they want. But what really irritates me about this is not what they believe in, and is not what they do, because we expect anything from anybody who hates Islam. That's a fair game, right? We have been persecuted for the past few centuries, and we'll probably continue being so until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows this persecution to end. And maybe it's just because of our faults as Muslims, to be honest. I mean, I always blame myself. I don't blame anybody else. But what's really noteworthy here, I think, is the kind of projection they have. So when you talk about, oh, Islam is a religion of persecution, Islam is, I mean, look at the earliest Christian societies in human history and where they are. They are found in Muslim lands, protected by Muslim people, right? And speak to these, until recently, who were really friendly minorities in our lands. Has anybody even persecuted them? Has anybody even tried to sway them out of their religion? In fact, back during the time of Saddam, for example, in Iraq, you would go to jail for 6 months if you speak to a Christian and they report you that you spoke to them about their religion, because it was completely forbidden to speak to anybody about religion should they not want to speak to you about it, right? So one of the closest associates of Saddam, for example, is a very known Catholic Christian. Tariq Aziz, he was the prime minister of Iraq, he was the foreign minister of Iraq. Look at Egypt, look at Syria. Look at all of these places where Christianity first fostered and flourished. We still have communities that go back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years since the dawn of Christianity. And when you say that, oh, Islam is oppressive and Islam is that, what are you doing? Back in 2003, I with my own ears, heard a lieutenant, an American lieutenant, who was speaking to his, I was standing in a queue, and he was speaking to somebody in his unit. Obviously, they didn't expect that, Iraqis could speak English. So, and I didn't claim that I did, by the way. It was really interesting, just, eavesdropping. And what he said would really shock you. He said, I can't wait for the day when we would be able to erect a St. Peter's Church in this city. A really secluded, small area, just farmers, minding their own business. They have nothing to do with whatsoever. Even the religion they knew was all just, tradition to them. Right? And he was actually speaking this in a very serious tone. I don't know if he was joking or not. I'm not saying that he actually meant it. But I'm just saying that this is actually found in your top positions. Your highest positions in your countries are not secular, and you preach secularism to us. This is what really annoys me and gets me out of my because if you speak about Islam in an institution in Iraq for many decades, my father was taken. He was in the Iraqi army, by the way. He was a brigadier general. And he was taken to prison, and then he was sentenced for capital punishment. Lo and behold, he had some close relatives who were high in the government, and they could take him out. But anybody else would have been just completely gone. This is back in Saddam's time, by the way. Why? Because he used to pray in his office. You might not believe this, but Allah is my witness. This is what happened. This was the report that came to the parties, to the Units Party division, because every division in the Iraqi army had its own representatives of the Ba'ath Party, right? And the first thing in his interrogation was, what is your position on, where do you stand on the Ba'ath Party? And my father had nothing to do with politics. My father would rather die, he's dead now, but he always said, I would rather die than associate myself with any political party. And we took that from him, myself, all my siblings, right? So what I'm saying is, this became really inherent in our systems, in our governments. You can't speak about religion now. Anybody who would be either questioned or just, they would face a very serious trouble.
Well, I know a brother who went to Egypt to learn Arabic about 25 years ago. And he would wake up for Fajr and go and read Fajr at the mosque. And he got picked up by the police, I think 2 or 3 times. And the question they asked him was, why do you go and pray Fajr at the mosque? Why don't you pray at home?
Yep.
And so this concept that these idiots have, that all these countries, Muslim majority countries, are actually very, very tolerant to even practicing Muslims, you'll find actually that because a lot of them are Western puppets, scared of their Western masters, that they actually persecute their own people. And pretty much most countries around the world, actually, to be Muslim is actually quite difficult. To be a outwardly practicing Muslim is very difficult. And I had somebody who asked me the question just yesterday. It was an old couple. They just returned from Saudi Arabia. They got one of the last flights out from Saudi, and they were basically asking me some questions, basically similar to what this woman has brought up. But it was very, very interesting because their perception, despite living in countries like Saudi Arabia and working there and stuff like that, is so isolated, so incredibly backward. They really didn't have a clue what Islam actually said, what it actually taught and preached. In most Middle Eastern countries now, if you show any voice that promotes Islam, you'll be picked up, you'll be questioned, like, what's going on, what you're doing.
Create panic in your family. My own family, Brother Abbas. When I went to Iraq a few years back, I had a beard because just I didn't shave. It was close to my father's death, and I was mourning him. I didn't even care about what I looked like. And when I arrived, the first thing my uncle asked me, "What is this beard?" And in a really angry, scolding voice. Are you trying to wipe us out? You either take your beard out or you're not staying here, he said. I was like, what? Hang on a second, what's this about? And I forgot totally about this, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because they asked me the question. They said to me, what would you say is the best country for Muslims to live in? And I said, probably one of the best is the UK, is England. Because actually I can be a Muslim here. I can openly be a Muslim. And yes, there's some friction and there's some right-wing nut jobs who want to basically pretend as if somehow we want to take over and implement Sharia law on everybody else, which is just absolute rubbish.
Sharia courts.
Yeah. But I said, they were very surprised that I said that. They were very surprised. Like, why would I say England was one? I said, look, I can live as a Muslim here quite comfortably. And then they said, well, is it because we're so tolerant? And I said, I don't like the word tolerant. I don't like the word tolerant because tolerant seems like as if you have to go out of your way to tolerate somebody. And I don't want to be tolerated. And I don't think that's the right word I would use. I would say that there's still more justice here than most Muslim countries around the world, not because of the fact that they're Muslim or that they have Islam, but because actually the governments are often tyrants who have been put there by colonial powers in order to serve their own agendas. Anyway, let's quickly forward back to the
concerns me about Islam, okay? Because I believe there's an agenda in this nation for Islam to just take over.
I'm interested in who you think's behind Islamic migration, and it's strange because the more Muslims that enter the country, the less we're allowed to talk about them. It should be the other way around.
Yeah.
So what's your theory on who's behind it all?
So what we're seeing 6% of the UK population is Muslim, 6.5%.
Just before you go on, imagine this, the more Muslims enter the country, the less. So first of all, Islamic migration, this is the claim is being made that this sort of migration is somehow an Islamic issue. I think in the last 20 years, if you stop bombing the countries that people have to flee from, then you wouldn't see so many Muslims coming into the country. It's that simple. And you take about 1% of the actual the worldwide refugees anyway. The worldwide refugees, 1%. Most of them are in neighboring countries, vast majority of them. So this is the thing. So if the reason people are leaving is because you're bombing the crap out of these countries, either directly or indirectly, and that's the reason that you make them unstable, and that's why they leave. And that's basically the bottom line. Sorry, just carry on with that, and then we can have a look.
No, we can leave it there, and we can go to the next clip. But the point here is that Liam then says, "What's behind this Muslim immigration?" implying that there is some concerted effort by these sinister Muslims around the world who are planning to invade the UK by coming into the UK. It's just so cheap and just so ridiculous.
I just have one idea to share here. If any of your audience is Libyan or ever lived in Libya back in the 80s, I really hope that they would be able to participate, because I'm going to say something about Libya that I know myself. I lived in Libya, by the way, for 5 years, between 95 and 2000, right? And that's back in Gaddafi's time. I'm not complaining. The people are wonderful. Really, they're not one of the nicest people you could ever come across. But I'm telling you, I'm sharing an experience that I heard from many Libyans, especially in Tripoli, the capital, right? Back in the 80s, Gaddafi had something called the Revolutionary God. So yeah, the God of the Revolution. It's more close. The name is quite close to what they have in Iran, right? And it was close with the Iranians, by the way, Gaddafi. So the gods of the revolution had a license to kill pertinent to one single issue only. If they suspect anybody to be a zindiq, that's the name they used. He used to call them zanadiqa. And this zanadiqa, this term he used, was specific to Muslims who were engaged in Islamic politics. Say, for example, Muslim Brotherhood, whatever, regardless of the name, right? So whoever would who would be caught by the revolutionary or the guards of the revolution out on the streets, going to or coming from the mosque during the Salat al-Fajr, they would be shot at the spot in the head. And I know families who lost actually family members. One of them, if they hadn't told me directly, I would have never believed it, right? So the reason why I'm mentioning this is the following. If we Muslims are so clever and so well organized in, bringing this conspiracy to Europe, why did we fail in our own countries then? Why couldn't we turn these countries into Islamic countries that judge by Sharia law instead of the secular systems that we have there?
Yeah, it's just a trope, and it's a cheap argument, and it's used because it works. My conversation yesterday was similar as well with the couple, because they said to me, but people are concerned about London, especially because the population is growing so rapidly, right, in London. But here's the thing: Islam, just like many other, for example, religions like Judaism and cultures like African culture, for example, we have families, we have children. Nobody's telling you, the majority, not to have children. Nobody's telling you to just have your relationships via Tinder. We're not telling you to do that. Have wholesome relationships, get married, have kids, have 5 kids, have 10 kids. A lot of people, Muslims, will move to areas. I've moved to an area which is not predominantly Muslim. It's predominantly white. I like it here. I have no issue living in an area where there are more white people than there are Asian people or Muslim people. It doesn't bother me in the least. As long as I can practice my religion, you can crack on. You can do whatever you like. And if the numbers are, scaring you, then the politicians have already created barriers. The only people that are coming over on boats and things like that, the 4.5% of total immigration that's coming over, are generally coming over from countries we bombed or we've helped to bomb. So, every cause has an effect. What can I say? Let's get the next clip. Imran, do you want to add anything to that at all?
No, that's fine, inshallah. That's fine.
And yet they're coming into the UK. Why? What's the motive of you coming into the UK? This will shock you. 47% of Muslims that are born outside of the UK that come to the UK as immigrants want Sharia law. And this is why you see these people stood on the street shouting Sharia law. They want Sharia law, okay? This is why you see it 10 years ago in Whitechapel. You saw these people patrolling the streets. They were the Muslim Brotherhood patrolling.
Muslim Brotherhood. Now, this is really, really interesting. Really interesting. This is a term that is now being used more and more regularly for anyone who is actively Muslim, basically. And unfortunately, we've got countries like the UAE who are supporting people like Tommy Robinson and others for any politicized Muslims who are engaged within politics, or they're engaged within, preaching Islam, for example, or doing Dawah, for example, in Islam. They're all being tarnished with this label of Muslim Brotherhood. And the reason why they're doing that is because basically what they want to say is anybody who's an practicing Muslim is evil because they are a threat to these, dictatorships around the world, because obviously as Muslims, we have our principles and we are not going to simply ignore the injustices that are being done, not just by non-Muslims, but by Muslims as well. If you're a Muslim leader and you're doing open atrocities and you're sponsoring anti-Islamic speakers and influencing the world in a negative way, we are going to call you out. And so we become all under that umbrella of Muslim Brotherhood. We're all extremists.
Ikhwani. You become Ikhwani. You're Ikhwan directly.
Yeah, exactly.
So the other thing that's really important here is that this figure doesn't exist anywhere. Where did she get this from? Just because you say something confidently doesn't mean that actually it's true. So she's saying that 47% of people that come into the country she's talking about want Sharia law. I mean, where is this from? What question was asked? What was the poll? Give us some information.
Yeah,
Liam's just doing the Churchill, bulldog nodding.
Yeah.
Where is this information coming from? There's no statistic like this. Just type it into anything and see where this. Is there any statistic that says 47% of immigrants into the UK want Sharia law?
They could probably ask
in any poll. It depends on the question you're asking people.
Absolutely. And
the question is really important. And she's just made it. And after talking about killing and murdering and punishments, that's the only thing that people think is Sharia law, not.
But here's the thing.
Not looking after your neighbor.
Brother Sarmad, here's the interesting thing, right, Imran? Even if 100% of Muslims wanted to live under Sharia law, what does the Sharia say about non-Muslims that you're living with? Does the Sharia apply to them? No. The Sharia actually says you can't enforce the Sharia on non-Muslims. So actually non-Muslims would live absolutely freely, exactly how they wanted to live. So even if 100% of Muslims wanted Sharia law to live under Sharia law, you as a non-Muslim would not be prohibited from drinking alcohol and doing all of the other things that you want to do, because the Sharia doesn't apply on you. The Sharia applies upon the Muslim because they're a believer. And Sharia simply means the way. And the way to being a good Muslim is by following the Sharia. Your Sharia is that you can go on Tinder, you can drink alcohol, you can do all of those things. The Sharia doesn't apply to you. So the whole point is that the whole situation, this whole concept of Sharia law is deliberately used in a way whereby the perception of the non-Muslim is that they want to force Islam and Islamic principles upon us. My friends, history shows that Christianity did that. Islam didn't do that. It's Christianity that you should be afraid of. If Christianity was ever to take power in this country, you would have your freedoms taken away. Islam is not here to take your freedoms away. We don't care what you do. You can do what you like.
Can I just ask one thing? Is Whitechapel, isn't it the neighborhood just next to, what do you call it? The mall, the big mall?
No, that's Shepherd's Bush, I think you're referring to.
Yeah, but isn't it just next to it?
No.
Whitechapel? No?
So Whitechapel is right next to the City of London. So if you look at the map of
Oh,
London,
right, okay.
the central part of London is would be, I think, WC2 or WC3 or whatever. And then as soon as you move a little bit to the east, you come to E1. So East 1 is the sort of postcode east as you move to the east, basically. So it's very central. But the point here is they keep, I mean, here's the issue here. And as Imran pointed out, look, you can say what you like. Muslims are all lizards. Ooh, Liam's going to be nodding his head. Really? Yeah, they're all lizards. They want to take over the whole universe.
Compared to only on red moons.
Oh, really? That's what's happening here. That's exactly what's happening. She's making stuff up. And she's a Christian evangelical preacher. And instead of preaching about the love of Christ and Christianity and why Christianity is so amazing and why people should become Christian, all she's got left in her arsenal, all she has left as a strategy is, let me stop people accepting Islam. Let me lie about Islam, because that's where my bread is buttered. That's how I make my money. That's how I get popularity. And that's what helps my Christianity, by stopping people from becoming Muslim. She's just a liar. She's just an absolute fake, honestly.
Is that tipping point where you get a Muslim majority area. So right now you've got Rochdale over in the north of England. You've got Bradford in the north of England, which are considered no-go zones, simply because there are inactive Sharia law courts there that even the police won't go there because they're afraid to go there.
Right, Imran, I'll let you deal with that.
I mean, this is just a place where the police can't go in the UK. Come on, man. Who believes this rubbish? So she's interesting what she's done. She's picked Rochdale and she's picked Bradford, right? Okay. These are, ex-industrial towns in the, in the north. Lot of poverty now. And there's a lot of segregation there. Definitely things need to improve. Yeah, but the idea that police can't go anywhere, I mean, this is just complete nonsense, right? And the whole point here is that she's just play that section again. I just want to hear the first bit that she says.
1 second.
You're moving it to another point.
Yeah, sorry. I've got it here.
Is that tipping point where you get a Muslim majority area. So right now you've got Rochdale over in the north of England. You've got Bradford in the north of England, which are considered no-go zones, simply because there are inactive Sharia law courts there that even the police won't go.
So imagine this. So there are, we're going to be very straightforward. There are 0 Sharia law courts in the UK. 0. None. There are no other courts in the UK apart from the British courts. There are none. There are councils set up by the Jewish community and councils set up by the Muslim community.
And the Catholics as well.
And the Catholic communities. Yeah. I'm not sure, I wasn't aware of that, but that's makes sense to help them to navigate religious civil issues. They have no authority outside of the individuals who go there to deal with their religious issues like marriages or whatever, these sort of disputes that might happen in those. There's nothing that applies outside of that. So if the person who went there didn't like what happened to them, they could still recourse to British courts to have their matters heard. So these are not courts. There are spiritual. So there are councils that advise on spiritual religious matters.
They're advisory, absolutely.
That's right. And this is what it is. And the way it's put, that there's a whole other legal system over there that even the police can't go. absolute rubbish. I mean, this is literally desperation, absolute desperation that this is what you have to say. And I'm sure Liam's going to be just nodding his head. That Churchill.
Yeah, of course. And the point here is also, why do you end up with Muslim majority or Asian majority or ethnic majority areas? Because you have a situation where you have a white flight, and where a lot of people who are white, they don't want to live in areas where there are a lot of other ethnic minorities. And you know what? That's your choice. You're free to do that if you want to do that. I'm not going to criticize you for doing that. I'm going to say, if you're more comfortable living in an area where the shops and the people in that area are culturally more assimilated and to your own self, and you prefer those areas, then you know what? Good luck to you. Crack on. I'm not going to even call you racist, by the way. You don't have to like other cultures. You don't have to like other sensibilities that other ethnic minorities might have. I'm not forcing you to like those things. If you dislike them, you know what? That's your choice. You're free to dislike those things. And if you want to move into an area where it's predominantly white, you know, I don't begrudge that. I don't begrudge that at all. But don't then say that these are Asian majority, black majority, or Muslim majority areas, when in fact nobody forced you to sell your house in that area. Nobody told you to leave, okay, but you chose to do so. And by the way, when families like mine tried to move into dominantly white areas, the amount of racial abuse that we suffered just going to view the property, forget living there, just the 10 minutes that we were there to view the property, the amount of racial abuse that we got as kids, and my mum, okay, that we immediately said to my mum, we don't want to live here because, you know, these people are going to be attacking us on a daily basis. So we were forced to leave, forced not to select an area in a predominantly white area and go to an area that was predominantly Asian because it was safer to do so. So you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't be part of the problem.
Is your mic okay? I'm hearing a little bit of odd sound.
Yeah, it's muffled a little bit.
Is it muffled? I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's better now.
Now it's better.
Okay, sorry. Maybe it's the energy from the dates are running out. So, so you can't be part of the problem and take yourself away from any people of color or different religion. You can't show that level of hostility and racism when they try to live in your areas and then complain that there are areas that are predominantly Muslim or Asian or what have you. And this is why, you know, when people don't look at the different facets of evidence and information that actually, you know, create that very complex, often tapestry of reasons, right, as to why things turn out the way they turn out, then it's just easy to say that somehow Muslims are deliberately trying to concentrate in particular areas so there's some sinister reason going on there. And this is just cheap, you know, cheap nonsense. Anyway, let's
the mayor, all Muslim, okay? What Muslims are good at doing, I'll say I respect this about them, is they're good at getting into places of power and dominating and controlling.
Playing the long game.
There's several stages of Islam. Stage one is that they come in as victims. We need refuge, we need safety, we need protecting. Stage two is that then they try to influence culture, they try to influence government, they try to even, like, you see them gathering in mass, amounts of people. You saw it in Whitechapel in October, 1,000 men march in the streets, masked up, intimidating. I mean, crazy. You just think about even what the government have said about other marches that have took place. Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a quick look at that. The Muslims are so powerful, so influential in government that we can't stop our government from bombing other Muslim countries. We can't stop our government and we can't stop our politicians like Michael Gove, who is a right-wing Zionist shill, okay? We can't stop him from saying very anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic things. We can't stop your media from constantly telling us how we are, Islamists are organizing political interference in the British political system. You've been telling us all this time that get involved in politics, get involved in democracy, get involved, have your voice heard. And when our voices are now being heard, ooh, we don't like those voices being heard. We don't want you to get involved in our politics. We just want you to be passive, bystanders. Don't get involved in our politics. You can't have your cake and eat it. Muslims who are not happy with the level of racism, bigotry, and Islamophobia, and the constant antagonizing and disrespectful behavior that we often get, and the countless Muslim countries that are being bombed, okay, we're going to talk about that. We're going to have our voices heard. And if there are political parties who are prepared to be decent, prepared to be inclusive and respectful, are prepared to be good for the common British people, that includes Muslims as well, then yes, we're going to vote for them. We're going to support them. We're going to promote them. And that's our right to do so, okay? And you telling us that we are now somehow organizing a takeover, again, desperate times.
I still don't find, I'm struggling to find the logic in what she's saying. I mean, if, let's assume that a certain candidate runs for whatever election they run to, right? And they're going to represent the people who are closest to them. If they're Asians, they're most likely to have, more presence within Asian circles where they lived. Where is the conspiracy in that? Isn't that what you say that your so-called democracy is?
No, but also, Brother Sarmad, you know what it is? If I were to say that Jews and AIPAC and lobbying from Israel is infiltrating, controlling our political system and our political landscape, I will immediately be told that I'm just an anti-Semite. And even if I were to provide evidence for that to be the case, I would still be an anti-Semite. So if 85-90% of American senators are being funded by AIPAC, okay, people would say, oh, that's anti-Semitic. You shouldn't say that. It's wrong, but it's perfectly right to say it about Muslims.
I see. I mean, the double standard is really obvious there, but it's still, I don't see what the logic is.
So we're coming to the end of the stream. We're going to play this last clip, inshallah, and then probably round things up. But
just want to say very quickly. So this is the irony of it. So very recently there was an election, by-election, right? Now there's going to be an investigation into that by-election because Muslims voted. They're doing an investigation into patterns of voting because Muslims voted in the by-election.
Once they get to that place, they will want Sharia law activated.
That's okay. And if you look at this idea that Muslims, so this stage one, they come as victims. Yeah, the Muslims organized the bombing of the countries that they came from so that they could come in as victims. Yeah, this is what happened. This is how powerful they are. They help the politicians that the country they want to go to bomb their country. So then they have nowhere to stay, and then they go and infiltrate as victims. Yeah. And then they get into a position of power. Yeah, we've got, 60% Muslim MPs in Parliament? Must be, because you need at least more than half to be able to have any control, right? I mean, this is complete farcical nonsense. Complete farcical nonsense. But what it does is it puts in the mind of the people who are being because these people are terrorizing the population, the working class, or whoever they think that their audience is. They're frightening them against Muslims. And what they do is they put this idea in that they control everything. Even the politics controlled by them, the police are controlled by them. You've got no control. And this is just pushing towards what's the option then for them, available for them, is you've got to stand up. You've got to stand up and fight. This is a call to arms, a dog whistle that's being blown by people like this, who claim to be Christians, who claim to be, representing Christianity, and we have him, Liam Tough with his Churchill dog nod going off, throughout that completely disgusting way of behaving. Can't believe that someone would behave in that way.
But I don't know. Maybe this is Christianity in its reality.
Well, I think, to be honest,
I've never been Christian, to be honest, but when I hear these people, when I hear these people and I see this phenomenally increasing and growing within Christian circles, not, exclusive to the West, but even within, as I told you, like Assyrian societies, Chaldean societies, you name it, all of Christians who we lived with for centuries are repeating the same propaganda now. So I'm just thinking that maybe there is something that we really don't know about. Maybe there's something that's being circulated within their close circles, within their churches, that, hey, listen, Jesus Christ is coming soon, so you have to prepare for the big battle. Maybe that is.
Yeah, I think there's part of that, but I think also that you've got to understand that you have the Epstein class in America, you have the Zionist agenda around the Middle East. You have unfortunate Middle Eastern leaders who are clinging on to power because they know that their level of affluence and debauchery is not going unnoticed by their people, and their level of collusion with the Zionist state and their level of collusion with the Americans and what have you. It's not going unnoticed, and people are deeply upset and concerned. So what's happening here is that all of these billionaires and these regimes and all of these other right-wing nut jobs, what they're doing is they realize that one of the tools that often works is by promoting and spreading Islamophobia. So she is basically just a mouthpiece, and Liam is just another collaborator, basically, in that greater vision. This is why you had Elon Musk, who was begging Epstein to bring him to one of his wildest parties, and Epstein just brushed him off. For Elon Musk's sake, I think he even though he desired the insanity of what went on Epstein Island, he was brushed off by Epstein and probably ended up to some extent saving his reputation. But even he said that on the Tommy Robinson March, he said violence is coming towards you.
Coming to you, yeah. He said that.
It's coming to you. Yeah. So he goes, if you whether you fight or you don't fight, violence is coming. So basically what he's saying is, look, guys, you need to be violent. You need to violently stand up against these things. So these billionaires who are corrupt and are using Islamophobia as masking their crimes against humanity, I think you have 10 people in the world who own more than 4 billion people on this earth. The wealth of 10 people is more than 4 billion people on earth. How do you conceal that level of wealth? How do you conceal the fact that you're paying no tax? You're not paying into the system at all. How do you conceal that? You create civil unrest. And this was something that came out in the Epstein files as well, which is that they want to create civil unrest. And one of the plans that they had was that we Brexited Europe, that we left Europe, because they want a Europe divided, not united, basically. And it's precisely this type of activity, precisely this type of drive of keeping people fighting, which conceals the real robbery that is being currently constructed and being had by these very rich people. So, you have utility companies that there have been multiple reports where the wholesale price goes up by 5%, but they actually are charging 8%. Okay. I think I'll take it as sarcasm this time. I took it wrongly previously. Utility companies, your insurance companies, your banks who are giving out mortgages, all of these institutions are getting, richer by the day. And who's getting poorer by the day? The average person who can't pay his bills, the average person who can't get a job, the average person who can't afford to get his dental work done. He can't afford to get his teeth sorted out. People are actually pulling out their own teeth because they can't afford to go to a dentist. This is happening in Britain today. Now, when that person is told your life is crap because you have these people coming over on boats, your life is crap because these Muslims are taking over, it's an easy argument to follow. It's an easy sale. And so you have somebody to point to for the living standards that have dramatically become harder and have dropped in your own life. And now you have somebody to point to. Now you have someone to condemn for your difficulties and your trials and your tribulations in your life. But who's actually pushing that agenda? Again, you've got billionaires who bribe our politicians, who run our media for the most part, and they constantly push this narrative because they know that most people are sheep and they will simply follow what they're told. And part of what we're trying to do here is we're trying to say to people, especially if you're not Muslim and you have a very negative opinion about Islam, is that come onto our shows and talk to us. Ask us what we actually truly believe. Have a conversation. Don't just believe what you're being told, because otherwise you're just being a sheep. And I think nobody in their right mind would, I hope, willfully and willingly be a sheep. Imran, we're about to end the stream. Any last words before we go?
Brother Sarmad, anything you'd like to say if you're still there?
I think maybe Brother Samad's tied up. But Imran, any last words, inshallah, before we go?
Just to say that remember all the brothers and sisters around the world who are going through difficulty wherever they may be. Make dua for them. May Allah protect them from the yoke of the oppressors. Ameen. And may Allah make your. We're coming up. We're more than halfway through Ramadan now. We're coming towards the
last 10 days.
Last 10 days.
Yeah,
so make dua. Really, really try to excel in your ibadah. Make dua for the Muslims around the world and for anyone making effort in the Dawah. Brother Ijaz, pray for his health, inshallah, and the brothers who are stranded in different parts of the world where there's issues going on. May Allah protect them. Make dua for us. Make dua for our families. And may Allah make them strong in their iman and give them good spouses, good futures. I mean, just keep everybody in mind, inshallah. And ultimately, everything good is from Allah, and anything that's mistaken and in error is from ourselves and shaitan. May Allah forgive our shortcomings. Brother Abbas?
Yeah, just last couple of words, really, which is that I don't want to leave us feeling negative. I don't want to leave us feeling that we are on a losing battle, because we're not. A Muslim should never be, and a good person who wants good for people, whether you're Muslim or you're not Muslim, should never feel defeated. We should never feel that there's nothing we can do. There's a lot we can do, okay? And so all of you, mashallah, who are watching, when you see a video like this, do some fact checking, leave a comment, a negative comment, or there are lots of easy ways of doing, videos that you don't have to show yourself, and you don't have to even have your voice heard, but you can say, this woman makes claims about Islam. Let's do a fact check. Let her say what she's saying, and then just put a caption underneath. According to government statistics, blah, 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 blah. This is false. Big cross, whatever you want to do. There's little short videos that you can do like that. Become mobilized. Mobilize yourselves. Do something, inshallah ta'ala. Do whatever you can. Jazakallah khair for Nazmi, for sharing that for Brother Ijaz. So we can be active. When these things are said and they're hurtful, we shouldn't ignore them. we should actually engage. We should give feedback. We should have our own social media, places where we can actually present videos, make shorts or whatever we can do. And if enough of us are doing that, then there is a hope that when these people are exposed over and over again, nobody likes their lies to be exposed in mass. Okay, Liam might not be too upset that EFDawah have done a reaction video about him, because he might say, well, yeah, they've got a lot of subscribers, but guess what, they only got 2,000 views or 5,000 views. Who cares? But if 100 of us are doing 5,000 views, okay, then it comes to 500,000, right? And now you get 500,000 views, 500,000. And so this is what I admire, mashallah, Brother Jordan. Brother Jordan is very, very committed, and he does these little shorts often on his phone, and I think they're really, really good. And so I think we need to mobilize ourselves and not allow lies and deception to win. The other thing that we should not do is that we should not fall into the trap where we become like them. We don't want to lie about Christianity. We should not lie about atheism or Judaism. We should make sure that whatever we say is truthful. It has to be. And this is the sign of a good Muslim, a practicing Muslim. But we should not be just sitting there, taking it and not doing nothing about it. So may Allah inshallah inspire us to do that. As Imran said, it's the last 10 nights. Please pray for our ummah. We can oppose, for example, what the Iranian regime has been doing and what they did in Syria and other places. We can oppose that. But at the same token, we can pray for our brothers and sisters who are being murdered and killed in Iran. We don't want them to die. We don't want them to be butchered. We don't want their country to be destroyed. We don't want that. We're Sunni Muslims, but we don't want our brothers and sisters in Iran to be bombed and to be persecuted and to be killed and murdered and butchered by these barbarians, because they are barbarians. So we can pray for them that Allah makes things easy for them. We don't want their children hurt. We don't want their children killed. But these barbarians, they don't care. They don't care whether you're Sunni. They don't care whether you're Shia. They don't care. Okay, they are barbarians, and so we should also pray for them as well. Please pray for us. Pray for our families. Pray that inshallah ta'ala Allah makes us sincere, keeps us sincere, keeps us inshallah ta'ala steadfast, and accepts what little we do. And I think with that, Jazakallah khair to all of you who joined. Jazakallah khair to the mods, mashallah, for all of your hard work. Please do share, and if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe and do help the channel and support the channel, inshallah ta'ala, in any way you can. With that, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.